Looking for the best entire month of personalized astrology services for just $3.99. At Serious Joy, we pride ourselves on providing astrology enthusiasts with exactly what they're looking for. Daily personalized inspiration that speaks directly to the heart. Sign up today and you'll receive personalized messages straight to your phone 7 days a week. And that's just half of it. You'll also get access to our exclusive members-only site with tons of amazing features. Experience the most accurate astrology service on the web at seriousjoy.com.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
Hello and welcome to Namaste today. It's so nice to be here. We are live here in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, streaming here in this first day of December, which is going to be a fascinating moment as well. We're moving into a fascinating new light this month, and I'm excited to be here. Also, if you're in the chat, the super chat, please say hi to everyone. Tell us where you are from and where you're chatting from, and we'll say hi to you. Looks like we're having some wonkiness here in our studio. I don't know what's going on. It's like an unofficial extra early Mercury retrograde. So I'll just say hi from who I can see here in the chat myself here. Hello, beautiful ones from Michigan. Well, that was very nice, Carol. Hello, Rabbit, New York City. Interesting. Hello, Lori S. Hello, Elaine. Hello, Carol. Hello, Michelle Shepard. Hello to Tennessee as one. Oh, it's Experimental Elemental, one of our favorites. And hello to Jennifer in Maine. It's so nice to see all of you all here today on this fabulous day. We are energetically moving into a new era. I'm very excited about this, folks. It's a new era for us here in the world and in the light. We have a lot to talk to you about today because we're going to be going through a powerful month. We are currently streaming live, by the way, on YouTube, Facebook, x.com, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn. The chat that you're involved in is a super chat. It brings all these different areas and websites together. And coming ahead, we have a powerful show. We're going to talk about how it's the end of an era. We're going to talk about Neptune is stationing direct. That means your karma is now moving forward. Venus is squaring Pluto, which means you're going to have a little bit of a conflict with power this week. That settles up over the weekend. And later tonight, I'm extremely excited for ASTRO MINGLE, actor, director, producer, stuntman, and the host of the Interview with E.D, Reuben Langdon is here to talk about aliens and the other dimensions. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is from Saturday, December 2nd to Friday, December 8th, 2023. Looking ahead at the weekend forecast, it's going to be merry and contrary as you solidify your belief in yourself. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and merry. Step 10 means the earth rules the day, so your news story is now manifesting into reality. You are feeling this heartfelt opportunity with the moon in Leo, and with Mercury sextiling Saturn, your mind is identifying that indeed this is a new chapter in your spirit and in your life. On Sunday, it's sunny and contrary. Step 11 means Chiron rules the day, so you are feeling everything coming into alignment, but you may also feel everything that is not in alignment. You also have relationships squaring with your power as Venus squares Pluto, causing you to rectify where exactly your power is in the given world. And with the moon in the high degrees of Leo, your heart is imagining what the future will be like. Moving ahead to the 5-day weekday forecast, over the course of the week, you're going to take this new belief in yourself and you're going to contemplate a new belief about daily life. On Monday, it's sunny and realistic. Step 12 means Jupiter rules the day, and in the sign of Sagittarius, that makes today a Grand Master Day. On this day, a new narrative about your daily life will be born. You'll be deciding to believe differently about your life. The moon in Virgo will have you understand things on a very practical and realistic level, and with Venus entering into Scorpio, you're now getting comfortable with the changes. On Tuesday, it's foggy and ethereal. Step 13 means you are between dimensions and between narratives. You are innovating the plot, and you're also commanding new terms and conditions that you expect out of your life. With Venus trining Saturn, you're also opening up to how your spiritual perspective is transforming at the same time. On Wednesday, it's sunny and sharp. Step 14 means Mercury rules the day. This is the day where your mind will adopt a new perspective on daily life. You will feel your destiny begin to move forward as Neptune stations direct. And as the moon shifts into Libra, you're starting to feel the changes inside of you. On Thursday, it's sunny with a chance of rainbows. Step 15 means Venus rules the day. You can double that energy because the moon is also in Libra. This is the day where you are going to accept and receive the new story in your heart. The sun is trining Chiron, so you're also feeling your relationships heal in day-to-day life. And with Mercury trining Jupiter, you are reframing your theories about what you are worth. And then on Friday, it's sunny and convinced. Step 16 means Neptune direct now rules the day. You are allowing your feelings of faith to come through. You are feeling that you know. And with the moon in Libra, you are restoring balance to your daily life.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
If you haven't already, please be kind and do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Serious Joy TV. Hit the bell button so you're notified. And if you don't mind, please like this video so the YouTube algorithm will help us to be joining with other people who are astrology fans. Namaste Today Live is sponsored by SeriousJoy.com. We are a life improvement soul coaching program based on your personal data of your astrology chart. Right now, we're doing the 40 days of My Truth and Purpose. We're in the final chapter of that. By the way, that can be done also over the holidays. And after you hear today's predictions of what's going on, I highly recommend you do. I'll have more details about our service at the end of the show. And with that, I think it's time to dive straight into our planets and our transits. Lordy, I am feeling the energy tonight, man. The combination of Aries energy, because we're in step 9 right now, and Sagittarius energy is extremely fiery. In fact, I actually predicted today sunny and fired up. And I have to say, I've been fired up all day long. Thanks for joining us. It looks like we're having a couple of hiccups in our technology. We'll just roll with it here as part of live TV. Thank you for coming, folks. We are diving into really an exciting time in our life. I just finished recording what I call the megascopes, by the way. These are mega horoscopes that are for the entire month of December on our service, SeriousJoy.com. Highly recommend them. They're about 20 minutes each for each sign, and they go into the depth of what we're going to do over the month. And let me tell you, this month is going to be rather compelling. We are arguing on our team. We go back and forth, not arguing, but we are putting out there for discussion, that's the way to put it, that ultimately this month is going to be the end of an era, and we believe it's going to be the birth of a new era. And by the end of the month, we believe a star will be born. And that star is you, my friend. I think every one of the 12 signs has the ability to come into their power in this next 30 days. And I'm not blowing smoke. It may seem like an overnight success or an overnight turn of energy, but the truth is that we've been building up to this moment for our entire lives. I actually believe there's only 2 eras in our lifetime. And up until now, I have been coining them as the story you were born to and the story you were born to live. We're now going to call it the new era and the old era. So we are moving into officially the new era this month. And it comes from a variety of things that have been happening. But let me just sum up real quickly what I feel are the key important players here. We have this duality going on right now with the planets, which I think is really fascinating, where we have Saturn in the first decan of Pisces and Neptune in the high decan of Pisces, Jupiter in the first decan of Taurus and Uranus in the third decan of Taurus. These kind of energies of top and bottom. And soon later this month, we'll have Mercury in the early degrees of Capricorn and Pluto in the high degrees of Capricorn. What this duality of low and high is literally sort of the way law of attraction works, that we are modifying our inner self and who we are and how we are to ourselves. And this is going to change the scope of reality and change the scope of our own destiny. And I believe that we opt in to the new era this month. And it comes from a couple of things. Really, the main push of this new era is Saturn in Pisces. Saturn entered into Pisces this last March in 2023 for the first time in 29 and a half years. That's its orbit, basically about 30 years. 1993 was the last time Saturn was in Pisces. We had Neptune enter into Pisces in 2012, which, by the way, was the last time Jupiter was in Taurus. And what happened once Neptune hit Pisces was we started to awaken to our spiritual themes. We also started to awaken, I think, to other dimensions, which is what I'm so excited about today's interviews about. We'll be talking and learning more about that from Reuben later. But Neptune in Pisces began to expand, ultimately, our awareness of our patterns. We began to become aware of our spiritual patterns. We began to become aware of our psychic abilities. They were always there, but we just started to become aware of them. And since 2012, we have been noticing the patterns. We've been seeing our karma. We've been sort of understanding the loops. Now that Saturn entered into the mix in March, we now have the power to take responsibility, which is what Saturn is, responsibility. Take responsibility to end those patterns. Saturn went from 0 degrees to 7 degrees and then retrograded. By the way, 7 actually is the number of Pisces. 7 is the connection number to the other realm of spirituality. So basically, Saturn went from 0 to 7, which was, in essence, the first spiritual chapter of our own karma with ourself. So far this year, after all these years since Neptune was in Pisces, we've now been able to clear and take responsibility, or being shown the opportunity to take responsibility for our karma with ourself. And from what I understand, our karma with ourself is the only reason why we're really here. Karma technically is spiritual memory. It's the things your soul is hanging on to. It's the lessons your soul wants to experience. It's the bucket list you make in heaven for what you want to do here on earth. So with Saturn going from 0 to 7 and then back to 0 again, it literally retrograded back to 0 and then went direct at 0 in November. I mean, the mathematics of this consciousness have been spot on, sharp. Now that it's going forward, we have the chance to officially end the karma with ourself. Now, once we end the karma with ourself, we technically opt out of the first era. The first era being that first list, that first bucket list. Oh, look at that. I just installed the update to on my Apple computer, and now they have these gestures that are in here too. So it's like you have different things that happen. That's so funny. I can darken myself. That's supposed to be fireworks, but it doesn't come out too well. Anyways, I'll be conscious of my sign language here. Once we face this karma with ourselves, and we've been shown it all, Saturn direct as of November and moving forward this month is the ability to officially take responsibility and respond differently to our karma with ourselves, so our issues with ourselves. This month, Saturn will go through 3 different step numbers: step 1, step 2, and step 3. And ultimately, what that means is we're going to take responsibility for how we love ourselves karmically, take responsibility for our emotions about ourselves, step 2 karmically, and then take responsibility for our karma with believing in ourselves. And once we have faced, yeah, it's confetti. So funny. Once we have faced our karma with self-love, our karma with our emotions, and our karma with our beliefs, we are in a place at that point to break free from our karma. And that, my friend, is what I'm calling the end of an era that is happening this month in December. Now, the other interesting thing about this month in December is that we have Pluto wrapping up this month its tour in Capricorn. And you may know, wrapping up, technically it goes into Aquarius in January, and it will go back into Capricorn from September to November of next year. But those are just tests of what we're learning this month. This is the last month that the Sun and Pluto will be together in Capricorn for the rest of your life. It's the last time the Sun and Pluto will be in Capricorn together for the next 249 years. It's a big deal. And in that sense, this is also the end of an era and the birth of a new era also. I'm going to trigger confetti again. It's my quotes. I just realized it's my air quotes that are doing it. This is the end of the era of dealing with all of our control issues on Earth and having learned all the lessons of Pluto and control. So if you put those two together, your karma with yourself, which is basically you healing from all the wounds you've had in past lives, all the spiritual junk in your trunk, coming clear on your karma with yourself, and coming full circle with your lessons about power, you are officially at the end of this era. And so when you put this in the context of the sun in Sagittarius, which is what we're in right now, one of my favorite signs, by the way, in the zodiac, I love the feeling of Sagittarius. I actually think Sagittarius is technically the Christmas feeling that we feel is Sagittarius. And then it goes cold into Capricorn and we get all serious about being on time for dinner and getting everything done on time. Timeliness, that's, part of Capricorn. But now that we're in Sagittarius and we move into this next week, I'll be talking about this. We're going to be changing our narrative and our story because our karma with ourself is ending, our deep karma. We'll be carrying the karma out, by the way, through our whole life. This is just the core issues we have with ourself. We start to really face and cure. And now that we have come full circle to understand our seat of power, which is what Pluto and Capricorn is, what power do we go for? What does power mean? What are we willing to do for power? It's now time to rewrite the story because the things that have motivated us, karma and power, are gone. We're now in a new place to be motivated by other means. And that motivation is going to be ascension. It's going to be moving to a higher dimension of life on Earth and possibly other dimensions in the universe. Again, I cannot believe the timing of having Reuben on the show today because this is the day we basically begin our ascension to higher realms. So over the course of this month, I argue you are going to completely rewrite what your story is here on Earth. And it may not be that you rewrite it from scratch, by the way. It may mean that you're finally ready to live it. So in my case, I happen to have a lot of awareness around what my purpose is in life. And I realized after doing readings that I was rare, that most people don't know their purpose. That's one of the reasons why we did this 40 Days of Truth and Purpose on SiriusStory.com, was because so many people don't understand why they were born or for what reason. I was gifted knowing why I was here. Could be Jupiter in my 7th house. I'm not sure. That's a philosophical conversation for later. But in some cases, you may have always known your purpose. And if that's the case, your purpose is now here, or you may not have known your purpose. And if that's the case, you're going to discover it or come clear on your purpose over the next 30 days. And I think one of the big things to keep in mind is that a purpose always starts very simple and becomes complex. So don't expect your purpose to be saving the world. Because you may be here to save the world. Many of us have come to help the world in need at this time, but whatever purpose you come up with will probably be something very subtle, something very basic. And I remember in my beginning, my purpose was I wanted to help people discover their talents and discover their purpose. So I didn't know it would turn into a YouTube channel. I didn't know it would turn into an interview seat. I didn't know it would turn into what it was. I just knew that I want to help people understand who they are so they can be the best star that they really are on the inside. And that was a personal, selfish motive where I want to see the world go to peace. And I thought if everybody was at peace with themselves, then the world would seek peace. And so how do you get at peace with yourself? You understand who you are. You understand your purpose. You understand the intentions that you bring here in the world. So it's going to be, I think, a very exciting month. And honestly, I think it starts to get extremely exciting next week on this week that we're about to live. So I'm excited to be talking about this with you today. In fact, let's go ahead and dive in. The theme for the week is the end of an era. So over the course of the next week, I believe what you're going to be doing, in essence, is bringing closure to a lot of stories and narratives that you've had in your daily life. We're going to go from, and I'll talk about the degrees, but we're going to be in the teen degrees, which means we're going to be now that we know that we have a new story with ourselves, and that's what we've done since Thanksgiving, is that we've been working on a new belief about who we are and what we believe about ourselves and what we believe we are, our possibility and our potential is. Now we move on to go, okay, what do I believe my daily life is going to be in the new era? And I think the first thing that we evaluate are where the end of our era is. So don't be too surprised if you find that you've come to the end of your rope in certain relationships. With the South Node in Libra, I really think that a lot of relationships are done now, done in the sense that they came here, they incarnated and came into your life to help you with that karma with yourself. They were reflections of that karma with yourself. They're reflections of our struggle for power, and we're finding our seat of power. And now that chapter is over, really that book is written. It's actually a book. It's not a chapter. Now that we've completed that book, you're going to find probably that you're at the end of your rope, or you come to the end of the road with maybe jobs, with situations, with maybe vocations that you do. Not that you're going to be ready to change it right away, but Mars is in Sagittarius this month. And so we're going to be actually making changes right after we change our beliefs. So this isn't one of those months where you go, I think maybe I should do this. And then you sit on it for 2 or 3 months before you do something. This is actually a month where we have expedited fate. Things will move in a fast way, which means that as soon as you believe that the belief changes, you're going to have an instant manifestation that's going to reveal and show you the opportunity to do it. In fact, I'm believing this month that there'll be a lot of instant manifestations where you say, maybe I'm looking for another job. And then a day later, someone's like, hey, we're looking to hire. And right away, you'll see that sort of come in. So it's an exciting time. But I think in this first week, it's really about recognizing what stories have ended, how they're coming to closure. And I recommend that you come to closure on good terms with everybody and everything. Let's do it with love and light and say, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for walking this earth with me. And I'll see you later in life, or I'll see you in heaven. One of the two, basically. There's going to be a kind of a parting. At the same time, there's going to be this week, the second theme of the week is accepting inevitable change. So it's exciting, when you have your life change. It's exciting to have the story change, but also you realize it comes with a lot of work and it comes with a lot of follow through. And I think that's why Mars is there in Sagittarius. So it's sort of like, yes, sure, I want to move, but God, I don't want to pack. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have to lift boxes. I don't want to rent a U-Haul. So part of this week is about accepting that things are changing and giving yourself the time and space to process, and giving yourself a gentle landing with the fact that things are changing. Because I think that gentle landing is really important, because you don't want to create, more karma. We want to close off this karma with ourselves in a gentle and loving way. And the key question of the week to ask ourselves is, what's a new way to think about it? What's a new way to think about it? That question, what's a new way to think about it, sounds very elementary, all right? But it's actually quite profound when you start to think about it, in the sense that our brains have been programmed for the old era. Our thought processes are all based on the old era, based on our karma, the way we think, the way we react, what triggers us. And the thing about thoughts and feelings is they're very cyclical, okay? They go around and around. In fact, they're the fastest moving states of awareness. Mercury every 88 days around the sun, the moon, our emotions, every 28 days around the earth. So these are the fastest frequencies in human consciousness, thoughts and feelings. And so they're the most repetitive. So a lot of what kind of hooks us back or keeps us from moving on is that our mind just stays in that same rut. So if you want to consciously move faster in your change, just try to reframe the way you think about it. And you can think about it differently by taking the opposite. The easiest way to take a new perspective is to choose the opposite perspective and to look at it from the opposite point of view. That's the best way, or the easiest way. But you can look at it from the other person's shoes. You can look at it from your future self, looking back at your current self. Just flip that script. What's a different way of thinking about it? And that different way of thinking about it, I think, will sort of pop you out of your mercurial rhythms and cycles and get you onto a new way of thinking. I think our mind is going to be the reluctant part of us to change, I think. And that's part of the full moon we had, by the way, last week in Gemini. That was to sort of jolt and let go of a certain way of thinking about ourselves. Now it's time to let go of certain ways of thinking about our life. So it's a good time in that sense. I like fresh ideas. Everyone likes fresh content. Now, we do have an angel practitioner on SeriousJoy.com. Her name is Devin Dewar. She's an angel intuitive, and she gives us notes in our mega monthly address from the angels. She was saying that one of the things the angels are saying this week is, once you have seen it, you can't unsee it. And I think what that means is, and what she explained it on the show, is that you're going to see some truths about people in this last hour here, or you're going to see some truths about life. This is from the angels that are saying this. You're going to see some truths that are going to change your point of view forever. You can't unsee it. And so part of this week is basically to realize that there's no turning back. It's one of those things that once you realize the truth about Santa Claus, you can never go back, right? And so there's going to be a lot of truth coming out. I think this is on a national level. I think this is on a collective level. I think it's tonight on Astro Mingle, truth coming out. Truth is going to start to come out. We're coming out of our slumber. You can't unsee it, basically. So be prepared for that. She also said it's time to find like-minded people and start to come together. So it's definitely time to collaborate with others. It's time to form the new communities of light. It's time for us to come together as an audience. We've talked about that. We're going to try to create an event next year to bring the audience together in person, but also in your life, in your town, with things like Zoom and other stuff. There's no excuse. It's time to bring the like-minded together. And it's also time to activate giving and receiving, was her third message for this week. And thank you, Devin, by the way, if you're watching. Thank you so much for your guidance and for your downloading. Giving and receiving in the sense of, very much in the sense of Christmas, but also in the sense of talent, you know, where it's like, hey, I'll give you, and I've been doing a lot of trades. Like, I'll give you a reading if you give me a reading, or so I've been trading my talent a lot lately. In fact, I haven't even been selling readings recently because I've been trading so many readings and doing barters. So I think it's good to start coming up and bartering. And that's what Devin had said. And I agree with. Oh, she's in the room. Hey, Devin. Hi. Thank you, Devin. So nice to have her here. Thanks for being in the office. Listen to me, the studio. So funny. So let's take a look at the planets for the week and sort of map out the scope of our consciousness and things are going to change. This week, the sun, which is our heart and the driving force of everything, moves from step 10 to step 16 Sagittarius. And step 10 is the I manifest energy of holding space to manifest the new story. Step 16 is when we accept this new story to our heart. We accept and record this story, and we own what this story is. So this is the teen degree. So in this week, the hard day will probably be step 13, which is Tuesday. That's when you'll probably have a hiccup in the giddy up as to, the issues that you may have with your current life. So this is where you can't see you can't unsee it, basically, I think. You'll have a realization that the story is over now, or that you'll realize you've come to a close with a certain story. You'll realize you've come to a close with a certain situation. And I think what we're ultimately doing is we're seeing what storylines and what narratives is our heart invested in. And what's important to know about this is that what your heart is invested in is your spiritual path. So if you're tired of the same old story, let's say of something going on in your life, someone who's maybe caught in a rut, or maybe a situation at a job that just keeps going on, doesn't change. This is the week where you go in your heart, you know what? I don't know if I want to invest in the story anymore. My heart's not in it to win it anymore. I can't unsee what I have seen. And so therefore, I think this is the end of that era. And even though it might be the end of a situation, like you're opting out of the PTA, or you're opting out of, being a part of something, or you're ending a relationship with a vendor or maybe a client, really what's happening is there's a part of you that was wounded once upon a time. And because you were wounded, you would tolerate and accept these things as normal in your life. But now that you have started to heal yourself on the inside, these things are no longer acceptable in your life, and it's time to move on and go forward. So the heart this week is really exploring what's in it and what's not in it for me this week. And on Monday, we hit step 12, which is we start to open off, say, okay, I'm ready for a new story in life. On Tuesday, there's a bit of a shock, like, oh gosh, okay, here's the reality of things. Can't unsee that. And ultimately, by Wednesday, hump day, that's when you have a new idea of this era is over with something in my life. And we'll talk about in the tea time horoscopes where that is for each person, all 12 signs. But that'll be the point when you go, okay, that's it. And by Friday next week, we are in our heart opening up, and we are basically asking God, universe, is this correct? Is this era in fact over? And by next Saturday is when you'll realize, yes, I'm ready to commit, and it's going to be over. So in this 1 week, you pretty much end certain narratives going on in your life and realize they're over, and you start to commit to an alternative in your daily life. That's the biggest of the week. Now, Mars is between 5 and 10 degrees this week, which means that it's now time to move forward, and it's time to activate all the new storylines that you created with yourself since Thanksgiving. And I don't think it was this show that I shared it, but I had realized my storyline that changed is I was always saying one day I'm going to do this, and one day I'm going to do that. And around Thanksgiving, I go, oh my God, it's the day. It is the day. Like, it's now, it's time. I can feel it. This is the moment. So Mars this weekend saying, okay, if this is the moment, then act like it, Wateki. Let's do it. Let's get on it. So Mars is sort of enforcing and activating this new storyline, which isn't always the case. You don't always see the sun and Mars so close together, by the way. So the fact that our heart, the sun, and our ego, Mars, is ready to hop on that new story right away is one of the reasons why we're having such a flash, such a change of narrative this month, because we have these two characters moving together, or two parts of our character moving together. Now, Mercury this week is in the same sign as Pluto in Capricorn. Mercury and Pluto. Mercury this week goes from 1 to 6 degrees. So we're already starting to think about the self-discipline necessary to pull off what we want to pull off. We realize we're going to have to be more disciplined inside of ourselves. And this part of self-discipline, in other words, the part where you go, how do I do it? Well, okay, how do I do it? That part is going to be thought over 3 times, because Mercury actually will retrograde this month on December 13th. It retrogrades till January 1st, New Year's Day. So it's quite literally like kind of perfect. So on New Year's Day, we're ready to go. And it's going to retrograde over the same space of 8 degrees to Capricorn all the way down to 22 degrees of Sagittarius. So we're going to end up thinking about, how can I do it 3 times? First, the direct time right now. So this is the first time you're going to think about how to do it. Then it's going to retrograde and you're going to rethink, well, how do I do it? And then it's going to go direct on New Year's Day and you're going to go, okay, here's how I do it. So what I'm saying to you is, don't worry too much about how you're going to do it. You're going to have a lot of time to plot out how that plot unfolds, but you're going to identify what the goal is early on. Pluto this week stays at step 28, but Pluto will go to step 29, which is the tested step of power, and that will happen on December 19th, right before winter solstice. So I'm sorry to report, everyone's going to be in a bit of a frenzy where power is sort of threatened in a way, or tested in a way, for a full month. It'll be there at 29 from December 19th to January 20th, a full 30 days. And then it'll be on to Aquarius. It'll then go back to step 29 only next year in 2024 from September to November. So there's 2 tests. The first test at this month is like, are you sure you do want to do this era change? Are you sure? Because it's going to mean a change of power in the world. And then next year, I think the other Pluto 29 is, are you sure you don't want to go back to the way it was? So God always tempts you back, or the devil always tempts you back. But in our mind this week, there's a lot of thinking about the first draft of, how am I going to do it? So that's Capricorn energy. Now, the moon this week is very sentimental. The moon is in Leo. In fact, I can feel that right now. I can feel that moon going into Leo. Moon went into Leo today. It went from Cancer to Leo. That means that we're in our heart today, Saturday and Sunday. We're all in our heart. Okay. So our heart's being highlighted. And this is really where we're asking ourselves, is my heart in it? Is my heart in this current lifetime story? Am I in the story of my daily life? Am I in what I do day to day? Is my heart really in it to win it? And am I in the changes of the new story with myself? Do I really believe in these new stories with myself? So over the weekend with step 10 and 11, you become this new story with yourself because your heart endorses it. Then the moon goes into Virgo. I'm learning how to do this on the screen. Into Virgo. I feel like a Price is Right girl. Now the moon goes into Virgo. And for the next 2 days after that, which is Monday, Tuesday, and most of Wednesday, half of Wednesday, you're going to feel reality in a heavy way. So it's going to feel really real. You're going to anal retentive real, to where it's like smack in your face the things that are no longer going to work for you. So God is going to give you irritating evidence. That's the best way to put it. Irritating evidence of how this shift needs to change, and needs to change now. And, although I think we're going to be a little aggravated because Virgo's really kind of reigns on the Sagittarius optimism, we need to see with open eyes, this isn't going to work any longer. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and again, remember, Tuesday is the breakdown day of our belief structure. Wednesday is when we finally get it. It's a real hard look at reality and how we feel about reality. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the moon goes into Libra. And this is where we're going to spend time weighing back and forth whether or not we want to stay on this particular narrative, whether or not we want to change the narrative. So literally this week is sort of like Christmas shopping. You are Christmas shopping this week for a new story. You are seeing whether or not you want to get rid of the old story, and you're feeling through all the degrees. Now, speaking of Virgo, Black Moon Lilith is in Virgo this week from step 6 to step 7. Black Moon Lilith ultimately is the part of our fear and our trauma energy. And this means that we are going to face fear and trauma energy this week around the ideas of disappointing ourselves, like being unhappy with what we become. So because the moon crosses Black Moon Lilith on Monday, Monday might be a little bit of a bummer because you may be looking at your life not happy with how things are going because it's time for a change. But it may bring up fears about, well, can I change? Will things change? Will it ever change? And that fear, by the way, is counteracted by Saturn. In fact, let's look at Saturn and Neptune and Pisces now. With Saturn opposing Black Moon Lilith and Pisces, Black Moon and Virgo, Saturn and Pisces, the answer to any woes or trauma or fears or issues is really you taking responsibility for not letting yourself go there, particularly if this is one of your karmic patterns with yourself. If this is one of your karmic patterns with yourself where you go there all the time and you always fall into a slump or fall into a depression over stuff, that's really an opportunity to end that cycle once and for all. So again, with Saturn in Pisces this week, Saturn's at 1 degree, which means we have to face all karma this week with loving ourselves. If you abandon yourself and you let yourself feel bad, that's abandonment. If you let yourself feel bad more than a day about something, you've abandoned yourself. You're not loving yourself. Loving yourself is taking yourself out for a walk, doing something nice, eating some yummy, healthy food, getting in the sunshine. I mean, basically what you would do to a toddler when you don't feel good. So I do think we get our first test of ending our karma around self-love when the moon crosses Black Moon Lilith on Monday and we sort of get bummed out about something inside of ourselves. And it might be something really silly and stupid, but it's just so that we are aware that we need to end this cycle. Again, we want to end all of the patterns we typically have with ourselves. All right. And take this opportunity to love ourselves. Neptune is at 24 degrees, but Neptune stations direct this week on Wednesday. Remember, it always happens on hump day. On hump day, Neptune stations direct, which means the karma switch is flipped and karma officially starts being created again. So when Neptune is direct, we create causes that will have effects. When Neptune is retrograde, we receive effects from our causes. So the good news is you're not going to be beaten up with a wet noodle anymore, which is what karma feels like. As of Wednesday, you're going to be setting up for the opportunity to have karma come back later. Now, this karma really has to do with your place in the universe. And I believe what's happening is God is listening with Neptune direct. So if you fall for your old karmic patterns with yourself and you fall into that slump or you fall into that self-hatred or you fall into whatever it is you do that picks on you, that's you from lifetimes ago, then I think you actually alter where you're heading in the future. We're basically choosing our destiny with Neptune at 24 degrees based on how we treat ourselves. So if you treat yourself poorly, you're opting in for another round of the old era. If you treat yourself well and with love, knowing what you've learned, I think you opt in for the new era. And I do think many people will be left behind is how this sort of happens, wondering what happened. All right. Looking at the energy of Taurus this month and this week, Jupiter in Taurus right now at 6 degrees all week long. That means we are expanding the value of ourself. Why am I valuable? What do I value in myself? Why am I worthy of love? Why am I worthy of this attention? Jupiter expanding that relationship to ourself. By the way, Jupiter stations direct on December 30th, right before New Year's. So it's like Jupiter stations direct on New Year's. We have New Year's Eve and then Mercury stations direct on New Year's Day. So literally the new era, I believe, begins on the first day of 2024. I'm not kidding. But part of that new era is that you now realize you're more valuable. And what's interesting is Saturn, and I'll show this to you when we look at the charts. Saturn is sextiling Jupiter, which basically means ending the karma with yourself should turn into immediate new credit with yourself. So as soon as you end a certain pattern with yourself, Jupiter's there to raise what I call your soul capital, which is basically the value and energy of yourself. And that soul capital is your battery of law of attraction, is the energy that goes out. The more love and attention you have stored in yourself, the more love and attention you will draw to yourself. So Jupiter at 6 says, okay, it's time to expand and realize it's time to give our inner self a raise. And with Uranus up here at step 20, it's working just like with these dualities, Saturn and Neptune, Jupiter and Uranus. With Uranus at 20, your capacity to innovate your abundance goes up as your soul capital here at Jupiter level goes up. So again, we have this repair me on the inside, make me better on the inside, and my outer world instantly upgrades. So it's instant manifestation right now with the way the planets are set up, which is why I really believe this era ends in 1 month and a new one begins in the course of this 1 month. So some powerful stuff there. And then lastly, let's talk about the sign of Aries. In Aries, we have Chiron at 15 degrees this week. Chiron's actually going to station direct on December 26th, the day after Christmas. It stations direct at 15 degrees. 15 means that we are currently healing some relationship we have with daily life. All right. That's the motive operative of Chiron all month. You're going to heal a relationship you have to daily life, or a particular relationship in daily life, or both. Okay, so it's going to be one of the two. Now, this week, in the capacity of healing your daily life, I think it's identifying the outdated narratives and identifying the parts of your life that no longer work anymore. And that's the part of the healing. So I don't mean to be so dramatic, but removing the cancer is basically how you will heal your life, by removing what is at dis-ease in your life, by identifying the narratives that you've grown tired of and you just want to say goodbye to. That's really where the healing is. And again, that healing is complete the day after Christmas. So you could say that something in your life will be healed, and that will be your gift from Santa Claus. The North Node at 23, Aries, and the South Node at 23, Libra, basically says we are now envisioning, with 23, we're envisioning the new character we're going to become. All right. And with the South Node at 23, Libra, we are disconnecting from relationships tied to the old character. So the relationships that will change, that will last through this transition, are the ones who are on the same similar journey as you, where you're going next, and they're on a similar path of how their character is developing. Some relationships will continue, some will discontinue. From my look at things, it looks like you will have the final answer on what relationships stay by April 7th of next year, the solar eclipse of 19 degrees. That'll be the final acts on any relationships that aren't going to continue into the new age with you. And new ones will replace those relationships, by the way. You'll have a new BFF, or you'll have a new, partner, or you'll have a new alliance or a new vendor or whatnot. So there is this big do-si-do that's going on ultimately, where we are letting go of the relationships that no longer serve us, and we're moving to the relationships that do service. The North Node, by the way, will be at step 22 for 12 days this month. So there's going to be some chaos around what we become, energy. And I think that starts on the 18th and it lasts until like the 27th. So I'll be talking about that week, but there's going to be it's going to be a little chaotic over the holidays. Definitely want to plan for things to be as quiet as possible, because the universe is stirring up a lot with these narrative changes. All right. So that's the planets for the week. Let's take a quick look at some charts. I'm going to do a share screen here and we'll look at some charts. And I will point out exactly what I mean by some of these events. First of all, so excited to have Reuben Langdon on later tonight on Astro Mingle. We're going to talk about all kinds of dimensions. The first is Venus squaring Pluto. This happens actually on Sunday, December 3rd, this weekend, in the morning, early morning Sunday here on the East Coast. On the East Coast, I'm on actually in Mountain Time. But you can see this right here is a seat of power change. Whenever you have a square to Pluto, you're having a change of power. And it looks like this is going to be some sort of a big picture of what your groups and associations that you are manifesting. This is basically uniting the light. Venus at 28 is us uniting the light And that uniting of people coming together on the same team for the same purpose, that's part of the Earth's ascension plan, from what I can tell. And this Sunday, somehow that squares off with Pluto, which means that there'll be a shift in power, or the first challenge of power. So this is sort of like unions working against big corporations kind of thing. Basically, this tension is starting to build. And when Pluto goes to 29 later in the month, on the 19th, that's when you'll have some sort of a response from this challenge of power. So we're absolutely being encouraged to come together and challenge the power. Okay. And this is right when we're feeling an integrity with the sun at 11 degrees. Venus then moves into Scorpio, where she will be for most of the month. And the point here is, and Venus moves to Scorpio on Monday in the afternoon, things are going to get really real, especially when the moon is in Virgo at the same time and Venus is in Scorpio. This is divine feminine finding balance and drawing the line, basically. This is sort of the divine feminine energy restoring balance after all the surgical cuts that happened during Scorpio. And so this is going to be a month where I think this is where Devin was referring to, you can't unsee it. Venus is going to show you in your face, see what this has become. And you're going to really be a little raw and a little vulnerable, just so you know. But also, this will be here to sort of help and heal at the same time. Also, we have this theme of grand trines in Earth this month that are happening with Mercury in Capricorn, trining over to Jupiter, trining over to Black Moon Lilith. So we're really working through our fears of what we're worth, what reality could be, worst case scenario, and what's my strategy and plan to do that. Don't forget, Mercury will go to 8 and then retrograde back to 22 and then go back to 8 again in its retrograde path between now, well, actually between the 13th and the 1st of the new year, literally the 1st. The next key date is Tuesday. This is when shift hits the fan, in my opinion. Venus trines Saturn. So what happens is God calls your hand and says, let me see your hand. Are you on the right path or not? So this is the first check-in. This is sort of a reality check-in. If you have not been loving yourself, shift will hit the fan. The sun is at 13 degrees. That's breakdown, breakthrough. That's Uranus. So this is a calling on Monday. This happens Monday night when they finally do it. But I think all of Monday is sort of a call on your bull shift. And things will break down in the story. Look at Mercury also at 4. That means a breakdown in my self discipline and a breakdown in my story, because God calls me on my bull shift. All right. And that's what this trine is. Saturn is direct too. So you will feel judgment. Then Neptune goes direct on Wednesday. Okay. At 8:22 a.m. Eastern time, Neptune direct at 24 degrees. Interesting thing about this direct is that it is actually quincunxing the prenatal solar eclipse, or the last solar eclipse energy, and the north node. So what that means ultimately is this, and it's semi-sextiling the north node. So this basically means the fate is now moving forward. We are now moving forward with our karma. We are now creating new full karma as of Wednesday. So it's sort of like, it's like we're like, is this thing on? Yes, it's recording as of Wednesday. That's the best way to put it. Then the next is on Thursday. We have a lot of transits this week, but there's weeks where there's hardly anything. Mercury trines Jupiter on Thursday, December 7th. This is just a day of checking in and realizing, yes, I am worth it. I do deserve it. I need to find a way to give myself the credit I deserve. And that's what Jupiter is doing, is recrediting ourselves. And then basically the week ends, the last transit of credibility of the week is on Thursday. This is at night, and this is basically the sun at 15 degrees Sagittarius trines Chiron at 15 degrees Aries. This is where you, I think, realize, I believe what this trine is that you're going to realize where the dis-ease is in your daily life, where the cancer is, so to speak, what you have to cut out of your life. And so realizing that something in your story needs to change, which is going to be Thursday. Thursday's when you go, yeah, this isn't going to work, or I need to make a change. This isn't going to happen. Remember, we're feeling pretty confident with Mercury trining Jupiter here. So we're feeling more valuable as we realize this. And at that point, I think we start the healing. That's the first notion of healing. And if you remember from just a minute ago, Chiron stations direct the day after Christmas, December 26th. So it's also the day of the full moon in Cancer, by the way. So that's when the healing really happens. But this is the beginning of that healing, in essence. All right. That was the planets. And I am running according to time tonight. I'm getting better at that. Maybe it's the energy of Saturn direct. I don't know. But I do know this. Go steep yourself some tea and let's have our tea time. Welcome to our tea time horoscopes. Today, we're going to be talking about all 12 signs and what you all going to be expecting. And I have 4 categories. So, by the way, if you don't know, we re-release these horoscopes on Tuesday as a reminder, so you can check back in. Also, be very kind to share the horoscopes with someone you love. It's a great way to introduce people to Namaste today, and I'm very grateful. It is time to unite the light. It's time to bring our people together, and it's time to help people on their journey. This is a very intense month. If there's ever a month that people needed a little guidance, it's this month, because this is the key month to end the old era and begin a new era. So with that said, this week, I want to give some coaching on 4 aspects. I think last week I got a little tripped up because I was biting off more than I can chew. That's part of my old story, but I'm on the new story now. And that means I'm going to lighten the load a little bit. The new Wateki is lean and mean. So we're going to do 4 things tonight to talk about. 1, I'm going to talk about the sun in Sagittarius and where you are in your life, where you are changing the narrative in your daily life, and what part of your life needs to change the narrative. Now, one disclaimer here about that. If you change your story in the place I tell you, the rest of your life will follow suit. Okay. So if, for instance, I say change the story with relationships, it will work out at work. It will start to work in work. It'll start to help your health. It'll help your emotions. It'll help your ability to make money if you just change the story with relationships. So that's the cool thing about astrology. It tells you sort of where the pressure points, the conscious pressure points, much like getting, acupuncture, right? That you get to change the chi flow. Same thing in astrology. You change the chi over here, it will all fall through in the rest of the soul's system, which is the solar system. So change the story where I tell you or where I share with you today, and change it in your sun sign first. That's very important because that's your source energy. So if you don't change it at the source, you won't be able to change it in the rising. Okay. They end up kind of co-polluting themselves back. I'm going to also talk about Venus in Scorpio for all 12 signs, which ultimately is Venus in Scorpio is where you have to open up and sort of accept reality. This is where you can't unsee something, basically, where things will get a little too real. It's basically what we did in the last transit, but now it's sort of like the lessons of the last transit are starting to come together. They're starting to come into form. They're starting to heal now. And in some cases, you're seeing some reality, like if you missed a spot, so to speak, as far as a boundary issue, I think Venus is going to show it like very clearly in your face, undeniably. That's saying Venus in Scorpio is sort of naked. It's sort of when we get naked with the universe. Then I'm going to talk about Neptune direct and where your karma is officially clicking into gear, where you're moving into gear, moving forward with your karma, where your destiny is moving forward. The one thing you want to take away with that part of your life is you want to deliberately and consciously not repeat any mistakes from the past. Okay. That's what you do with your Neptune direct. And then lastly, I'm going to tell you where you are squaring off with power, with Venus squaring Pluto. Where are you squaring off with power when it comes to uniting the light, Venus in Libra, squaring Pluto in Capricorn at 28 degrees. And this is going to, of course, happen, as I mentioned, this happens early Sunday morning that we have this seat of power, 8:29 a.m. Eastern time. So really, it's something you'll start to feel building over the weekend. All right. And as always, we'll start with the Aries. Taking a drink here to start off. Aries, you are changing your beliefs about your knowledge. So the thing about Aries are purists when it comes to knowledge, and they're sort of purists in the sense that their actions creates their knowledge. So you build your knowledge up over your experience. That's how you are. You're the most experiential learner there is because you're not afraid to try or you're not afraid to do. So as a result, you basically need to have new experiences in order to change your knowledge. So your changing of your story with the sun basically trining your sun, when it's in Sagittarius, at some point it trines your sun, is you're going to realize with the North Node in your sign that it's time to change what you do because the experiences you had have gotten dull. And so you're going to realize, okay, I need to change what I'm doing or how I'm doing things so that I can go out and acquire new knowledge. And that's how you do it. You acquire it. Yes, you can open up a book and you can read and you can skim stuff, but even then you have to go do it to prove it to yourself that it's real. So you're changing your knowledge base and you're changing the story around knowledge. So the story around knowledge is, I grew up not knowing anything, or my parents called me a knucklehead or whatever. That story's over now. Whatever you once were when it comes to knowledge, it's now a new story about knowledge. You are knowledgeable. And in some senses, you might change your status. You might say, I was a student, now I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher, now I'm a professor. I'm a professor, now I'm a published author. You might be realizing that your status is changing with your knowledge, but that's the story that's changing, is around knowledge. With Venus in Scorpio, it's basically time to take your medicine. It's time to open up and enforce changes in yourself right now this week. It's time to open up and accept that you have to stop this and start that, and you have to put a limit on this, and you have to slow this down and speed that up. So you know better, but now it's time to do, because it's going to hold up the ride if you don't do it. So it's really important to open up and accept these changes that have to happen. Now, Neptune direct ultimately says it's time to change your fate. Your fate is moving forward with God. So you have a destiny to get closer to God, just like everyone else. And honestly, Aries are only now really making that bridge happen. And it's happening with Saturn early in the degrees of Pisces, in the sense that you are cutting your own karma with yourself. And every time you cut your karma with yourself on your lower stuff, you allow your higher self to go higher. So as far as fate moving forward, it's now time to get a closer relationship to a higher dimension. And when I say God, I mean anything above the earth. Okay. So God is everything, but earth is 3D density. So it's time to get closer to non-3D. We'll probably learn a lot more about that tonight when we talk to Reuben, but ultimately you're getting closer and moving closer to God in your own terms. And then Venus squaring Pluto. This is where you are creating a new relationship basically to others. It could be a group, it could be a marriage, it could be a new relationship to your own mastery, but you're opening up now with Venus in Libra before it goes into Scorpio to a new relationship, or a new relationship to yourself. And this relationship has to be reconciled with where your career is going and where your legacy is going. That means either your career is threatening a relationship, or your relationship is threatening your career, but you have to sort of kind of wiggle with both of them, sort of like you jiggle the toilet. You want to sort of jiggle it until you get that those two working together and working on the same team. So there might be some friction and power struggle between relationship commitments and career commitments that have to be reconciled Sunday, just so you know. All right. Taurus. Tauruses are changing the story when it comes to boundaries. So I've already started to feel this myself. It's now time, you had certain boundaries in the world based on your own pain and your own karma. So for instance, if you were hard on yourself, you probably let other people get away with stuff that you wouldn't let people get away with. Or in some cases, you were too hard on others because you were too hard on yourself. But because you were healing your relationship to yourself, you now are ready for a different story about what you will and won't tolerate. You're also having a new story about where the line is for you. And I think this is really important. I'm speaking here very personally, that ultimately boundaries are very important to a Taurus, because a Taurus is step 10. That's love and boundaries, 0. Half of our consciousness is boundary consciousness. We are love contained. That's what manifests things. So you have to get your boundaries aligned, and you have to recognize that your boundaries have gone through their own transition throughout the years based on your own damage and your karma. But now that those puddles are drying up, it's time to draw fair lines, and the lines that support your story and your legacy. So you're going to be making a lot of changes of story about where to draw the line. Now with Venus in Scorpio, you're now opening up also to relationship changes. And I think these two go together. Since you are working on boundaries and you're opening up to relationships, I think Tauruses are going to start drawing some heavier boundaries in their relationships, or altering those boundaries. And I would expect a kickback. I would expect that people will probably not want to go along with this. And that might be the thing you can't unsee. that you say, hey, these are my needs. And someone's like, no, that's not going to work for me. And you're like, okay, well, that's not going to work for me. And so we're going to see a lot of outs probably as a result, or at least some, because you are changing your boundary structures in relationships. Neptune going direct for you means that it's now time to move forward with your social reputation. So your social reputation is officially moving forward. Whoever you're supposed to be in society is moving forward. Remember, it's very important that you face your karma you have with who you are in the world. And you do that by loving yourself, honoring your feelings, and honoring your beliefs. And that's how you get on your path and you play your vector out. All right. But you are now, karma is now officially going forward with your social reputation. So I would think twice before you post that or hit send. Okay. And then lastly, the seat of power square is between lifestyle and purpose. You're at a point now where if you're going to live your purpose, it has to have a lifestyle that suits the purpose. You can now no longer have contrary lifestyle that works against the purpose. You had a lot of time to mess around with. You don't have that anymore. All right. So it is now time to reconcile the way you live your life and basically live your life according to your purpose, according to what you're here to do. Got an itchy on my nose. All right. That's Taurus. Gemini. Gemini, you are changing the story with relationships. So for you, the new era is a new way of relating to people. That's what the new era is. That's the new story, that you relate differently to people. It's not to say the way you're relating was wrong in the past, but it is to say that you were probably relating based on the fact that you had damage. And so you were tolerating things or law of attracting people or certain situations that were based on your pains, your fears, your worry, your trauma. So now you're going to have a new chapter in your relationships or a new age of your relationships. And this may be that you attract a different kind of person or you are going into a different direction. We'll talk about that later, but you're about to make a lot of changes. And so you might have new kinds of colleagues or new kinds of friends, but the story changes with Geminis in relationships. And anyone who is in a relationship with Gemini, I would expect a serious conversation sometime this month that things need to change, so to speak. Now, when it comes to the Venus in Scorpio, you are opening up now and accepting the changes that need to happen in daily life. So, you probably realized that you have to change eating habits or work habits or sleep habits or something in your daily life. You realize there's a boundary that need to be drawn. Now it's time to ultimately open up and accept those daily life changes and get comfortable and get balanced in those daily life changes. When it comes to Neptune direct, you are now in a place where your career and legacy is officially moving forward. So fated things are happening in your career and your legacy. You might get an offer, a promotion. You might be seen at work. Work is very important now. I would tread carefully. And remember, you have to really be on top of self-discipline with Saturn in early Pisces. Really be on top of your self-discipline to be able to get into that new karmic story at work. So be responsible for the things you know you need to be responsible for. The seat of power challenge that we were talking about, you're going to have a conflict and have to reconcile your heart's old dreams with transformation. And I spoke to this heavily in the Mega Monthly that Geminis, I think, get in their head and they wish for things and they live sort of in their imagination in their head. And it's like clearly the person's not into them, or clearly that's not an option for them to have. And they'll just sit there in their mind, they'll think about it and they'll think about it. And you're holding on to things in your heart that are just not going to manifest right now. And you're using those as excuses to not transform your life. So ultimately, you have to let go of what your heart can't have right now. I'm not saying let go of it for a lifetime. I'm saying if it's stopping you from changing, if it's stopping you from doing something, if it's stopping you from moving on, Venus square Pluto says, you got to move on. It's done. It's over. Let's do it. All right. So that's where your reconciliation of power is. Cancers. Cancers are changing the story of their daily life. And, I have a Cancer mom, so I hear this story all the time. I'm like, oh, life is this and life is that. And men are this and men are that. And I'm not downing on my mom. I'm just watching my mom as a Cancer, that Cancers have this story about the way life is, or the way work is, or the way, you work for the man, and whatever that story is. I'm not saying it's bad. It might be a great story. It's just changing. Your daily life story is going to change. You're not going to live your daily life the way you used to live. It's going to be a new story. It's going to have new characters. It's going to have new aspects to it. So daily life now is ready to change, and you're going to see what eras have ended this week when it comes to your daily life. Now, when it comes to Venus and Scorpio, it's now time to really open up to that self-love. You really need to open up and accept that self-love. And by the way, accepting self-love is different than giving self-love. Okay. So giving self-love, you do very well. Like you'll take yourself to the salon, you'll take yourself, out to do things. Cancers are really good about caring for themselves, but we're talking about letting that love in, like enjoy that salon visit, enjoy that cup of tea by the ocean, let your heart be in joy, basically. And that's what needs to happen with Venus and Scorpio. By the way, that's very important for you getting on the right creative projects and for you being able to find the love of your life, or for your current relationship to go to the next love level, because love has an infinite path as far as how deep it can go. Now, with Neptune stationing direct, your life purpose and the meaning of your life now clicks into forward gear. So now you are now officially karmically creating new karmic waves of making an impression on the earth and what your purpose is on the earth. So you're literally moving to the next karmic chapter in your soul book, basically, or in your Akashic record. So it's time to move forward. The key to moving forward with that, by the way, is the self-discipline around believing in yourself. You have to decide to believe in yourself. It's not something you prove, it's something you decide. So decide to believe in yourself and you'll move forward. And the squaring of powers between your family upbringing and your long-term relationships. And that's probably a deep thing to talk about. You'll have to meditate on it, but it seems that cancers are having to open up to a new way of feeling at home inside themselves. And I think your childhood puts you in a certain motion for what you look at home and family for. And at this point, your emotional needs are somehow in the way or conflicting with your approach to long-term relationships. And when Pluto goes to 29, all long-term relationships will be tested. You'll also be tested not to fall into the old patterns with long-term relationships. But before that happens, you need to square off of really being there for yourself emotionally and not letting relationships get in the way of that. All right. Yeah, let it go, babe, says Jamar. I hear you, brother. All right. Leos. I had to look at the screen. Where are we at? Leos are changing the story of love and creativity, which is very exciting because this is what they rule on life, is love and creativity. They're the masters of love and creativity. So Leos are ultimately going to be changing whatever that love story is. And what's important is your self-love story has to be different if you want your love story to be different. So if you're not happy in love, or you're not happy with how you're creating things, or if you've fallen out of love with a certain creative project, I think a lot of Leos are coming to the end of certain creative projects and they're ready for new creative projects. I know that's true for me as a Leo rising. You definitely have to love yourself at a higher level than you have. And the thing about Leos is they do love themselves. They just don't love themselves unconditionally. They don't love themselves in every place. They'll love this, but they won't love their hair. They'll love their wardrobe, but they won't love their shoes. It's like you have to learn to unconditionally love yourself if you want to open up the creative box of the love and the creativity you can create. It could also mean that you're changing a story around children, that you might be on the path of having children or having more children. Now, Venus moving into Scorpio means your feelings are going to get really real. This is going to be a tender month for Leos because Venus is going to open you up and get you really close. You're going to get more intimate with your own feelings, or you're more intimate with your feelings for others. It's going to get deeper. It's going to get richer. You might need a box of Kleenex, but in a good way. All right. So feelings get really real about life for the Leos and Leo risings. When it comes to Neptune stationing direct, it's now time to go forward with your life's transformations. So Leos were fated to do a change, basically a wardrobe change at this point in their life. They were fated to have a major change. You could call it a makeover. You could call it your success. You could call it, it could be, a time of facing shadow, that if you're a young Leo and you haven't faced your shadow yet, this could be, a dark night, as they say. Not that you'll stay there, but the point is your life is about to change. And that all comes down to Saturn in the early degrees of Pisces, about you really healing your ability to trust yourself. So you really got to be responsible about your boundaries with yourself. And you got to be really responsible about honoring your boundaries with yourself, because then you will trust yourself. And once you trust yourself, you can change your life. So I think for Leos, life transformation starts to happen. Expect a lot of fated things. I keep doing the air quotes today. Expect a lot of fated things to come into your life by surprise. Okay. Because I think that's what Neptune does. It sort of surprises you. Now, the square of the seat of power has to do with your thinking and your lifestyle. So you're opening up to new thinking right now, and your lifestyle has to be in line with your thinking. And maybe your lifestyle has changed, but now it's time to change some of your thinking. So you have to kind of connect the two and make sure that your lifestyle and your thinking are on the same page. And it can be outdated in both sides. You might be thinking the old way and responding the old way in your mind, or you might be falling into the old habits and you're really not being progressive in your daily life like you are in your mind. You have all these great ideas, but you're not doing it in your mind. And this is one of the final challenges to your lifestyle change, is that your thinking might be in the way of lifestyle. All right. Virgos. I love how I'm staying on track this week. Virgos, you are changing the story about how you feel about life. And this is a big one. Virgos are real good on stories, especially about their feelings. They'll tell you long stories about their mom or their childhood, or long stories about what it was like growing up. And this is their story, right? And it's a good story, but it's an old story. It's time to put that book on the shelf. You are starting a whole new story about how you feel about life. That would be how you feel about politics, how you feel about work, how you feel about people, celebrities, how you feel about friends, how you feel about everything. That's the new story. So you're probably going to find this week that you're really tired of certain feelings, that you're just over it. You just don't want to hear or go there again. And I know when Virgos get over it, they get over it. So I think you're going to be over certain feelings about life this week, which begins the story of how you're going to have new feelings about life and how you want to feel about life. So writing that storybook ending, basically, I think is what you want to do. Now, Venus in Scorpio is that you are going to now open up to a new way of thinking. When the sun was in Scorpio, it showed you this thinking is toxic. This thinking is toxic. This thinking is undermining you. This thinking is not supporting you. And you might have already forgotten. Okay. So you're going to have your thinking really close. It's going to be really hard to ignore repetitive thinking, to ignore negative thinking, spiral thinking, all that type of thing. So your thinking becomes really sharp. You're also very creative in your thinking with Venus in Scorpio. And also be careful to think twice before you say something, because there's a transparency with Venus. It kind of brings a like a magnifying glass. I think actually the Venus symbol is a magnifying glass. It brings like a magnifying glass to your thoughts and whatnot. And just be careful, someone else may not want that hit of truth. Virgos can tell like it is, like they're the first person to tell you got spinach in your teeth, basically. Now, Neptune direct means, and this is a good thing, your long-term relationships now move forward. So your story with long-term relationships, that's long-term creative partnerships, long-term romantic partnerships, long-term family partnerships, when you're connected to someone in your family, sometimes like sisters or brothers or best friends forever. So you're moving forward now in your long-term relationship karma, which, by the way, is completely dependent on how you are to yourself. So if you want to draw on that other kind of person, you've got to be a new kind of person to yourself. If you're not a new person to yourself, you'll draw on the same old type of person. Okay. So if you are bringing in the same type of person that you meet, whether it's on dating apps or in public or for your job or for your work, then you're still treating yourself the same. That's why you're getting the same person showing up for you. So change your relationship to yourself for that. When it comes to changing your seat of power, you're going to have to square off between your old business. So like what you do financially, what you do for abundance, and personal dreams. Somewhere how you make money and what your heart wants are somehow in conflict. So you're in conflict between what your heart really wants and what actually makes money. And probably both have to be tweaked a little bit, in the sense that, maybe you start making money from what you love. Maybe you don't insist on having so many things that your heart wants. But ultimately it's time for you to have what your heart wants, because in the new era, Virgos get what their heart wants. That's part of the new era. That's part of the new story that's going to happen. So resolving conflicts between money and personal dreams is part of Sunday through probably Wednesday. We're already starting to feel that already, by the way, and that's unfolding. Libras, didn't forget you this week. Libras, Libras, you are changing the story of how you think. So this is a bit more obscure and complicated to talk about, but Libras have a story that they repeat in their mind. And they usually have a story about people, by the way, because they love people. They love relating to people. They love bouncing off of people. So Libras are changing the story of how they think. So it's like, if you feel, for instance, to keep it simple, if your story is that you're always have depressed thinking, that story's over. You're not going to have depressed thinking anymore. I truly believe that your thinking is going to change. If you always look on the dark side, you're going to now look on the bright side, perhaps. If you always are focused on the details, maybe you'll focus on the big picture. Basically, the way your mind focuses, the narrative around your communication, the narrative around the stories you tell, the narrative around the thoughts and ideas you bring up, this whole theme and narrative is changing. Think of it like changing into a different part of a theme park. You're in like the Western section, and now you're going to go to like the futuristic section. So your mind is going to literally switch theme parks and switch themes in which you think, in essence. Now, with Venus in Scorpio, you're going to open up now to your self-worth. You're going to open up now to your values, and any sort of debt or things where you owe money or owe people are going to become very, very obvious. So you're restoring balance to finance and debts. You're restoring balance to self-worth. You're giving yourself the honest credit that you deserve, and it'll be painfully obvious if you are undercutting or undervaluing yourself with Venus in Scorpio. With Neptune direct, you're now moving forward with changing your daily life. So daily life now is going to change. Your new karmic chapter is that you're going to have a different life than you have now. So look around and recognize that it's all going to transform. What that comes down to, ironically, is how you live in your body and how you live in the moment. So if you live in the moment unhappy, stressed out, if you live in the moment diseased, if you live in the moment emotional or unsettled or out of balance, then you're going to create a destiny of a lifestyle that continues that right now. So you're going to be opting in for the same old life you've always had. So the knob to change the reality is to change how you live in the moment and in the present. And if you change how you live in the present, you will then begin to manifest the right waves to create the lifestyle that you truly deserve. Now, the square power on Sunday through probably Wednesday is going to be between ego issues that you have and your home and family. You are letting go of an old identity right now with the South Node in Libra. And with Venus having crossed the South Node and ending in Libra, you're now opening up to the fact that your old ego is now gone. It's going to be leaving you. I think that ego was based on saving people. I think that ego was based on tolerating a lot of toxic stuff. Personally, when I see Libras, I think that that ego was based on being able to be someone's, to save someone, to bring out the good side in someone that may or may not have asked for it, excuse me. But there's old ego issues that are squaring off with your home and your family or your ability to be emotionally grounded. So you have to work out the conflicts between ego, which everyone has, by the way, and your emotional home, family, and foundation, how you feel at home or don't feel at home. Good stuff there. Scorpios. Scorpios, you are changing the story with production and income. So basically how it is that you make money, what you do to what widgets you make, what makes you valuable in the world. And I think this goes in concert with the Venus retrograde through your house of career over the summer. You had a change of heart about career. And now the money part of it is kicking in as we're trining now to Sagittarius. So there's going to be a new story for Scorpios. They might be changing industries. I already know of a couple of Scorpios that are changing industries. They might be changing jobs. They might be changing products that they manufacture or they make. You can be a farmer and be a Scorpio, and you might say, I'm not going to grow beans anymore. I'm going to grow corn. So there's going to be a change in story of what you create, what you manifest, what you value, what you invest in. If you're a stock market investor, you might decide to invest in something else now. So you're deciding a new story about what you invest in and what you don't invest in. With Venus in your sign, Scorpio, you're now opening up to some behavior changes and some defensive changes. So I think Scorpios are sort of letting down their guard a little bit as they are coming into their heart with Saturn and Pisces. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But ultimately, it's now time to embrace the new behavior with yourself. It's now time to take care of yourself in a new way, one that supports the heart. What I said in the Megascope for Scorpios was it's now time to actively self-love. That Scorpios have an issue with self-loving. They tend to want to be everyone's hero, and then they sort of tough it out and they just, cauterize the wound and go on, like sort of tough. And that's cool, macho and all, but it doesn't bring enlightenment. It doesn't bring higher frequency vibration. So I think it's time to open up to softening your behavior, open up to loving yourself in a greater way, and you'll see your personality shift as a result. Now, as far as Neptune direct is concerned, I'm very excited to report to you, personal dreams are now moving forward. And I know Scorpios are starting to worry that the school bus was never going to come or the prize is never going to come. It's going to come. What's the caveat? The catch is you have to actively love yourself. And actively loving yourself is how you respond to yourself. Love is an action, by the way. It's not a word. It's a verb. It actually has a word. So loving yourself means you don't let yourself sit there and worry. It means you don't sit there and panic. It means you don't sit there in a dirty diaper and feel bad. It means you do something to get up and love yourself. So your personal dreams will unfold if you actively love yourself going forward right now. And I do believe that Scorpio's personal dreams are meant to come true in this lifetime, given all the planets and where everything is. Very powerful. When it comes to squaring off on things, you are squaring off on an old mental vision you have and your old karma with God universe. So your mind has a sort of attitude about God or an attitude about the universe, like the universe doesn't like you, or you always end up going last, or, always a groom and never, always a groomsman and never a groom. I try to flip that around on genders. But the point is your mind and faith, you have some sort of a block between your mind and your attitude and your faith. And you have to get your mind and your faith on the same page, basically, is what the planets are saying. Get those on the same page, work out the conflict between your mind and your faith. And when you do that, you will feel your seat of power rise up. You'll feel more empowered from that experience. All right, I'm going to take a drink. It's winter, so I have warm drinks. Sagittarius. Sag, happy birthday. I love me, my Sages. Sages, you are having a change of story about your behavior. So Sagittarius are about to change, and they're about to disappear out of people's lives, by the way. So kiss your local Sag. They may be gone here. You know how they like to travel, then never come back. Like, we love you, Sag. Love them while you got them. That's what I say to the Sages. Sages are changing the story of their behavior. Like, you do act like this, you do windows, but you don't scrub tile. What you will or won't do, what you will say or what you won't respond, how you will respond to things. Basically, this is a personality upgrade that's happening with Sag. They're about to become a different personality. Not entirely. It's about to get better, actually. And part of the reason it's getting better is because they're facing emotional stuff. And they're also, they have a lot of stuff going on in the positive. But I think really their emotional growth, their EQ, emotional intelligence is so much higher now. Sages are literally lightening up. So I think Sages are going to be a lot more fun than they have been. And they always were a great time. They're always late to the party and they stay late afterwards. But they're going to change the story of their behavior. And that's going to end up changing the story of who they are. But that's for the future here, a future week of Namaste today. So it's a change of story about your behavior and who you are and who you're not in the big picture. With Venus moving into Scorpio, it's time to open up and accept your faith. It's time to have faith and to accept faith inside of you. So open up and accept your faith, open up and accept your spirituality, open up and accept your karma, whatever that might be, open up and accept. Okay. So let God in and also accept the fact that your karma has changed and that you're moving into a new spiritual zone or a new spiritual department. With Neptune direct, your emotional serenity now moves forward. So God is trying to basically create a house of God at home. You're supposed to have a very spiritually high vibration home. You're supposed to feel at home in your own body. You're supposed to feel at calm and feel God in your body. Do you? Okay. So Saturn in the early degrees of Pisces is saying it's time to take responsibility for how you feel moment to moment and really up that vibration of how you feel inside yourself. And that will move your fate towards the home you belong in, the family you belong with, or the family relationships that you belong migrating to, or how those belong evolving. So it moves emotional family chords on evolution forward. The seating of power square is between your social reputation and money. So somewhere there's a conflict between who you are in the world and how you identify in the world and money. One of them or both of them is not correct. They need to be on the same page. So you need to be known in the world for what you really want to do, and you need to make money getting paid to do what you really want to do. So I think this is a push from the universe for Sagittariuses to move on to the story they were born to. The new era is whatever your role is in the age of Aquarius, basically. And so right now, the hang up of stepping into that power is you're worried about money. And so you're not really going for what you need to go for in society because of money issues. So correct that any way you can. Capricorns, you are changing your story about the universe and God. And, most Capricorns I know don't talk about God very much. Now, that's just the ones I know. I'm not saying you're supposed to become a thumper, but we are moving into the age of Aquarius, and you climbed a mountain for a reason. It was to get closer to God. So you're changing the story of your spirituality, basically, and of your faith. And the thing is to have faith means you have to have something to pray over and then see it be okay. So faith lessons do turn into sometimes challenges, FYI. But ultimately, you're going to change your spiritual story, and you're going to change the story you tell yourself from day to day about God, about your place in the universe, and the story about what your karma is. So you're literally changing the story of what your karma is. And by the way, it's not that you were wrong. It's that you completed the karma. You came full circle with what your karma is, basically, as we all have. If you're watching this show, not everybody, of course. With Venus in Scorpio, it's now time to open up and accept your place in the world. So you've been shifting your place in the world, saying no to some things, yes to other things. Now you're going to get cozy in that new place, that new title you might have, or get cozy with your new circle of friends, or being a part of a social group or being a part of a weekly meeting. It's time to open up and really accept who you are in the world, and really open up and be transparent with who you are in the world. If you've chosen your world correctly, you ought to be transparent. If you have to hide, you've got the wrong world there. All right. You're not in the wrong group. You're in the wrong group of people. Part of the enlightenment is authenticity and transparency. And so this is a real test. How transparent can you be in your social circle? If you can't be, may not be your social circle of choice. Maybe someone you just work with. Now, Neptune direct says it's now time to move forward with your brilliant ideas. All right. So Capricorn's going to be downloading the next wave of brilliant ideas. Here's the thing I was saying in the megascopes. You've always dominated business in the old world, and you're going to dominate business in the new world. The difference is you're going to go into spiritual businesses if you want to be the dominant. So you're now moving forward with new strategies for everything in life, but you have to clean up how you talk to yourself and be compassionate in your own thoughts to yourself in order for that to happen. All right. So if you're not honest with yourself, if you're not cutting out all the bad chatter, the karmic chatter with yourself, you will not download those brilliant ideas, because you'll be keeping your mind in a low vibration, a low frequency of fear, worry, hate, and that sort of thing. The square power is between your career and your character. Somewhere there is a conflict between who you are and what you do. All right. And the universe is saying it's time to do something new. So it's probably who you are that is holding up the game here, because that's where Pluto has been for the last 15 years since it entered your sign in 2008. So look for a conflict between who you are and your career and your legacy, and resolve that conflict in 2 days. No, I'm just kidding. You have actually until your birthday's over to get that one done. Aquariuses are now changing the story of their social image and relationship. So, I joke about this in their megascope. Aquariuses up until now have been the awkward one, right? The one that doesn't fit in, the one that's eccentric, the one that's into weird things, the one that's not comfortable in their own skin. And that was pre-age of Aquarius. We cannot have the age of Aquarius without the Aquariuses. And so Aquariuses are realizing now that they have a role to play, and that they're up to stage, they're up to bat. So it's time for you to actually change the story of whether or not people like you, change the story about whether or not you get along with people, change the story about whether or not you're a leader. Okay. That's the story that's changing. The role you play in the world, that story, that narrative is changing. The new era is Aquariuses have a different role in the world than they have in the past. And that role is a leadership role, most likely leadership by example more than literal leadership, because they're not really comfortable with people following them, but they are very comfortable with people doing what they do. Okay. So there's a difference there. So there's a change of that story. Now, Venus in Scorpio says it's time to open up to how your career is changing, how responsibility is changing, open up to the new commitments to make, open up to new directions to take. Open up and try some new things with your career. I think Aquariuses are going to be finding new age, high vibration careers soon, and it's time to move down that path and make that happen. Neptune direct says the money ship has sailed. You are now moving forward with material abundance. And basically, Aquariuses have had issues with self-worth. They haven't valued themselves, again, because they're the awkward one or the weird one or the eccentric one or the out of touch one or whatever, multidimensional. The word is ahead of your time. That's the phrase really appropriate. And so as a result, you've had karmic issues with not accepting yourself and not valuing yourself. And that's held up the money train. So your money train moves forward this week on Hump Day if you are responsible about giving yourself the credit you deserve and valuing yourself the way you deserve to be valued. Then you will be able to see new opportunities for money start to click into gear. Now, as far as the squaring off of power is concerned, there's a power struggle between your old life purpose, what you thought you were here to do, and your faith. So you have to work out a conflict between what you're here to do and having faith in that. All right. And there's some sort of a conflict between the two. The issue is probably the faith, not what you're here to do. Most Aquariuses I know are very clear on what they're here to do. So it's most likely that you having issues of faith. Is God on my side? Is this what I've been called to do? Is this really my place in the universe? Will I be supported? That's probably where you have to work on that. And that's where you'll be tested. Your test with Pluto at 29 for a month will be a test of faith. So be aware, test of faith from December 19th until January 20th, till your birthday, basically. Yeah. Pisces, you are changing your story with your career and legacy. So everyone, Pisces, take a good look. They're about to change. They are about to step into the role they were born to live. Everything you've known about a Pisces up till now is them facing their karma. Pisces are now clearing out the karma with Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces. They know better, or they've decided they're not going to know this lifetime. It's time to shift or get off the pot. And so their story of where their career is going, where their legacy is going, that story is changing. It is now time for a new career direction. This might be parenting. This might be leadership. This might be that you take direct control over some sort of organization. It's basically becoming the CEO of your own life. So there's a new story where you're rising up to a new role of leadership. And of course, it makes sense at the age of Pisces ending the Pisces rise. Of course, the Pisces are going to rise at the end of the age of Pisces. Of course. So it's time to, ride that shark. I would say ride that bull, but it's not very aquarium. Now, Venus in Scorpio says it's also time to open up to your knowledge. Okay. You have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have a lot of deep wisdom. It's now time to open up, and it's time to accept this wisdom and realize you have all this karma you've been facing turns into a lot of wisdom that other people need. So it's time to open up and accept where you're smart and accept where you need to take a class, accept where you're not smart. Okay. That will make you on top of it. So open up to your knowledge and your truth. Neptune direct says it's now time to move forward karmically with the new character you are becoming. So this is the age of Pisces graduate character I'm talking about. And that only happens if you start treating yourself like the new Pisces. So if you want to be a new Pisces, treat yourself like the new Pisces. That means you respond to yourself in the new way, respond to yourself as if you are CEO, respond to yourself as if you are successful, and then you will see that character rise to the occasion automatically. Also, your actions will bring karma now. So don't repeat an action you know not to do, because it will come back with a fierce karmic wave, because karma is now on once again. Cause and effect is now moving forward with Neptune direct. And then the square that you are facing is between boundaries and social ambition. You are changing where you see yourself out in society. I just told you, you're now becoming masters of the age of Pisces. But you have some boundary issues that may be holding you back. You're reluctant. You're not really following through with the boundaries. You're holding on to the past. Something's going on with your boundaries about what you hold on to or don't hold on to that's keeping you from really going on the path of your social ambition. By the way, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, Pisces rise in their spirituality for 24 straight years. So you're at the bottom of your spiritual knowledge right now, Pisces. You're going to you rise with the age of Aquarius for 24 straight years. So get your social ambition together, because you've got a date with God for 24 years. Pretty impressive. All right. And that wraps up our soul horoscopes and our tea time. I am super excited, folks. Keep streaming. We have a fantastic guest today. I have someone who's going to talk about all sorts of cosmic events. Reuben Langdon is here. Keep streaming. We'll be right back in about 3.5 minutes. This zodiac weather is from Saturday, December 2nd to Friday, December 8th, 2023. Looking ahead at the weekend forecast, it's going to be merry and contrary as you solidify your belief in yourself. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and merry. Step 10 means the earth rules the day, so your news story is now manifesting into reality. You are feeling this heartfelt opportunity with the moon in Leo, and with Mercury sextiling Saturn, your mind is identifying that indeed this is a new chapter in your spirit and in your life. On Sunday, it's sunny and contrary. Step 11 means Chiron rules the day, so you are feeling everything coming into alignment, but you may also feel everything that is not in alignment. You also have relationships squaring with your power as Venus squares Pluto, causing you to rectify where exactly your power is in the given world. And with the moon in the high degrees of Leo, your heart is imagining what the future will be like. Moving ahead to the 5-day weekday forecast, over the course of the week, you're going to take this new belief in yourself and you're going to contemplate a new belief about daily life. On Monday, it's sunny and realistic. Step 12 means Jupiter rules the day, and in the sign of Sagittarius, that makes today a Grand Master Day. On this day, a new narrative about your daily life will be born. You'll be deciding to believe differently about your life. The moon in Virgo will have you understand things on a very practical and realistic level, and with Venus entering into Scorpio, you're now getting comfortable with the changes. On Tuesday, it's foggy and ethereal. Step 13 means you are between dimensions and between narratives. You are innovating the plot, and you're also commanding new terms and conditions that you expect out of your life. With Venus trining Saturn, you're also opening up to how your spiritual perspective is transforming at the same time. On Wednesday, it's sunny and sharp. Step 14 means Mercury rules the day. This is the day where your mind will adopt a new perspective on daily life. You will feel your destiny begin to move forward as Neptune stations direct. And as the moon shifts into Libra, you're starting to feel the changes inside of you. On Thursday, it's sunny with a chance of rainbows. Step 15 means Venus rules the day. You can double that energy because the moon is also in Libra. This is the day where you are going to accept and receive the new story in your heart. The sun is trining Chiron, so you're also feeling your relationships heal in day-to-day life. And with Mercury trining Jupiter, you are reframing your theories about what you are worth. And then on Friday, it's sunny and convinced. Step 16 means Neptune direct now rules the day. You are allowing your feelings of faith to come through. You are feeling that you know. And with the moon in Libra, you are restoring balance to your daily life.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
For the best astrology guidance, you can enjoy an entire month of personalized astrology services for just $3.99. At Serious Joy, we pride ourselves on providing astrology enthusiasts with exactly what they're looking for: daily personalized inspiration that speaks directly to the heart. Sign up today and you'll receive personalized messages straight to your phone 7 days a week. And that's just half of it. You'll also get access to our exclusive members-only site with tons of amazing features. Experience the most accurate astrology service on the web at seriousjoy.com.
Hello and welcome to Astro Mingle, the spiritual podcast that mingles with the talented light workers and innovative influencers of our time. And here at the Mingle, we are fascinated by consciousness and the exploration of the final frontier, which is the extra dimensions of time and space. And today's guest has become one of the leading pioneers of communicating about that field of study. Reuben Langdon is an internationally acclaimed stuntman, actor, filmmaker, and video game star. My son already loves you, dude. His remarkable accomplishments have earned him the chance to work with some of the most renowned figures on the silver screen, such as Jackie Chan and Andy Serkis, as well as directors including James Cameron, Peter Jackson, and Steven Spielberg. His incredible success roles in popular video game franchises like Street Fighter and Devil May Cry have solidified his stardom in the gaming world as well. But not content to rest on his laurels, Reuben has since ventured into exploring alien phenomenon and ufology. In 2013, he co-produced a 5-day event at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. called the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, featuring over 40 witnesses testifying before 6 former Congress members. Also, not stopping there, he's gone on to create Interview with E.D. That's extra dimensional, if you don't know, a popular TV show that airs on Gaia and Tubi, where Reuben explores extra dimensional phenomenon like UFO sightings and supernatural events. So, with waves of love and gratitude, please welcome wholeheartedly Step 26 Cancer, Reuben Langdon. Hello, sir.
Hey, Christopher. How's it going?
It's going great, man. And I've actually had the pleasure of meeting you once on Serious Joy. You came on to a soul support group. I was just dipping my foot and my toe into this thing that you've been in, and I had no idea at the time how far down you were that rabbit hole. You're a humble man, by the way.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey over the years.
Really, it must have. I mean, getting started, first of all, let me just say to everyone who's watching, we're going to give your website and stuff. Your work is really terrific. I mean, you are a professional. Everything is clean cut. So far, every channel I've seen you, tape or have on your show is the real deal, which isn't always easy to find. So your capacity to find these people, and what's interesting is you're like the Oprah Winfrey of extra dimensionals. You're like interviewing Metatron and Stars in Heaven and stuff like that, which is really cool, man. Like whoever even thought of that. But you did, obviously. Yeah.
Well, it was not in the early days. It was very definitely a flying solo on that journey. There wasn't,
you were out on a limb.
Not everybody was into it, but it's been great over the years. The welcoming and the just the masses sort of resonating with the information, and yeah, it's been a nice fun ride.
I guess so. I mean, first of all, you obviously live from your heart. I mean, how did you get involved in Hollywood? Were you like a kid from Kansas that headed west? Like how did you get started in that group in the first place?
Yeah, kind of. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. And at the age of 19, I bought a ticket and went to Japan. And,
whoa, okay.
And sort of arrived there not knowing anybody and just kind of winging it. And before I knew it, I was living there for 5 years, speaking fluent Japanese and studying action and martial arts with the top action choreographers in Japan. And that's what brought me over to Hong Kong and working with Jackie and those other top people out there. So after I got enough skills, I returned back to the States, and then I said, okay, I've got to try now that I've got skills in this new language, basically not just the Japanese, but the physical language of action cinema. Then I tried. That was just when Hollywood was sort of accepting like Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, my mentor, and others like the Matrix movies, and those things were just starting to get going. So the Hong Kong influences were starting to take over Hollywood, and I was riding the wave. I was in a good place with Power Rangers and other stuff. So that led me to Avatar, working on Avatar with Cameron, and then that led me to having my first sighting that really changed my worldview on what's going on here.
Yeah, tell us about that. I saw that in one of your interviews that you said you were ironically playing an alien on Avatar.
Right.
when you had your first sighting. So I mean, sure, what was that sighting like? Where were you?
I was in Burbank, California, and
wow.
Or Glendale, which is just the next city over. I had an office in Burbank, and it was sort of, I had a day off on Avatar one day, and I was catching up doing laundry and living in a humble apartment complex, and dropped my laundry off, and I walked out, and there's a little outside space before I got to my apartment, and I just looked up, and then there was these objects in the sky that I'd never seen before. They looked like stationary planes almost, or reflect, not planes, but orbs. Mm-hmm. And several showed up over and over until there was about maybe 30 or 40 in the sky, and my mind was being blown. I was making calls. I was like, "You guys, has anybody else seen this?" And none of my friends in the vicinity could see it. So I just was locked on it for about 30, 45 minutes. And eventually they went away one by one. And I was like, okay, I guess this UFO thing is real. I gotta start looking into this. And
had you been fascinated by the topic prior to that, or did the sighting convert you?
Well, a little bit. I was interested, and I had seen Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project on YouTube. So that
Mhm.
was like that happened 2001, but I didn't actually see it until like 2005 when it came out on when YouTube had sort of hit the interwebs, and curiosity got the best of me, and I started going down. That was 2007 was my sighting, and
Wow.
I went down the rabbit holes, and eventually joined one of Stephen Greer's CE5
You did.
meditations in 2010, and it was a weekend meditation, and had more sightings and got to understand the phenomenon even more. And I was like, okay, this subject is too large to not talk about. And then that's kind of when I made the life choice to go down those rabbit holes and become an investigator, and doing the work I'm doing now.
Wow. And he has his moon on the galactic center, from what I can tell, in Sagittarius. And so your knack for timing is uncanny. First hitting the, Power Rangers Matrix wave, and then right when aliens get crazy, you happen to see one. So you got good timing, sir. So how did you go from a sighting to producing the citizens hearing on disclosure? That sounds like a huge production. That was your production?
Yeah, it was it was an over $1 million budget, and
Wow.
luckily we had Thomas Clearwater, the investor, generous investor out of Canada, who put the funding up. Wouldn't have happened without him, because we ended up losing the money. We thought we were. I wasn't quite riding the wave. That was 10 years ago, and unfortunately, the UFO topic was still quite taboo at that time. So now, if we did something like that, yeah, a whole nother deal. But at that time, there was interest, but it was really hard. The media did many hit pieces on us and sort of called us quackeries, and calling military personnel, esteemed award-winning personnel, military whistleblowers, as well as researchers, and the media was just calling everybody tinfoil hats, or getting together in Washington and that kind of thing. So it was a hard challenge, and really rough after that to have lost the investors' money in a sense. And we hung on for a long time, but now finally it's getting seen. The views are finally coming in.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I know you said it was a long conference. What'd you say, 26 hours? Is that what I heard you say prior to the?
It was 5 days in the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Sort of this Stephen Greer's disclosure project on steroids, we call it, because his was initially a 2-hour press conference. Ours was 32 hours of testimony, over 32 hours of testimony.
Holy
that's available now. So yeah, quite a undertaking to get people from all around the world, whistleblowers and researchers from around the world, gathered in Washington to do that historic testimony to 5 former members of Congress. They had all just recently retired, and one senator, the late Senator Gravel from Alaska, who was responsible for getting the Pentagon Papers out to the public. And so it was quite monumental if you look back at it, but it was just a timing thing. But it's out there in public record, so I'm glad it's there.
History will treat you well, brother.
Yes.
I'm sure the aliens will see to it. I know it's 5 days, but in essence, what we're talking about here are whistleblowers, I guess people who are reverse engineered craft and technology is sort of what was common. Are those sort of the key points?
Yeah, the big takeaway, I guess, is what everybody asks is why has the government been, or aspects of the government been sort of shrouding this topic in secrecy for over 80 years? That's maybe even longer, but at least what the evidence shows, we have 80 years of secrecy. And the consensus is because basically there's certain aspects within special interest groups, big oil, big tech, big all the bigs, right?
Defense contractors.
Defense contractors. And in order to have the upper edge on others, in a sense, on the people, just the general people, then they have access to these technologies where the rest of the people don't, so they can sort of play God in a sense and have do their bidding, and it's so what happens when collective humanity realizes that these craft are flying around on not conventional propulsion, in the sense of, using an oil or a gas or some sort of combustion engine to move us from point A to B. What happens to the world energy paradigm when we realize that there are other energies that can sustain and create, sustain the world, basically, on something else other than what we're used to. So that would destroy the current energy paradigm, and many special interests that are part of keeping that going would not want that to happen. So that's kind of the gist of why it's been a secret. And there's a lot of nuances in there, but basically, yeah, money and power, same old story.
Same old story, money and power, and also having to admit that they've been corrupt for 80 years.
Yes.
They're settled.
Well, that's the other thing. It's all illegal. So if they were to get, if the secrets were to come out, then the question is, well, why has this been a secret for 80 years? And then all of a sudden, then you see that there's been breaking of the Constitution, the Secrecy Acts, and all these other things that shouldn't have ever happened, and people would go to jail. So it's in their best interest to keep this thing under the lid.
Kind of a conundrum there. And I'm curious how it's going to unfold. Do you believe in and agree with Dr. Greer that we have, reverse engineered craft, that we have defied gravity, that we have hybrids that are abducting humans on Earth, and we're aware of this program, for instance? I'm sure you've heard that before as well.
Well, yeah, the hybrid programs are sort of in another category, but as far as the reverse engineered craft, there's many encounters from after the Roswell. There's a great book by Colonel Corso called The Day After Roswell, and he talks about him being responsible for taking many of the technologies that were recovered from the crashes at Roswell and others in the New Mexico area and Arizona area, and then sort of disseminating through different contractors, Bell Labs, Texas Instruments, and others back in the day, GE. So then they can then sort of get that out into the public domain, but still sort of keep tabs on it. So absolutely, the world we're living in, it's how could our technology have gotten so advanced here, so we have these amazing computers in our hands, and yet when we're driving our vehicles, we're using a 250-year-old technology that really hasn't changed that much, other than the computers that are inside of it. So aspects of our lives have completely changed. Other aspects have stayed the same, and that's all by design.
Yeah, I've heard fiber optics, for instance. I heard what came from alien technology, things like that. Certainly, perhaps some of the cellular stuff that we have going on. The fact that we can make a phone call through a satellite, is pretty impressive and a big leap. So abductions, you feel, are real? I mean, you had one person who spoke to being abducted. This seems to be legitimate.
Many have come forward about the abduction scenarios. Dr. Greer, I differ in his opinion. He believes that all the abductions were sort of, I don't want to misquote him, but based on my understanding, he believes that they were all sort of government programs, which absolutely happens. There are many government groups interested in the tech again. So when humans are getting abducted, were getting abducted, especially during the 1980s, was in the late 80s, early 90s was sort of the peak of the abduction phenomenon. Still happens, but on a much lower level. At that time, there were programs within secret programs and military stuff that they could actually find and trace some of the abductions, not all of them.
Wow.
And then they would go back and abduct the people after they've been taken by the ETs, and try to see if they can find what they've been, some of the Dr. Roger Lear, who was one of the late Dr. Lear, who was one of the researchers at the hearings. He had extracted 17 different implants from people. Wow. And had them analyzed and looked at, and there's really no explanation other than off-world technology. So some were biological, but most of them were the metallurgies and things were looked at under metal analysis. And it was pretty common that the government would go in and sort of try to figure out what aspects and why these people were getting abducted, and sort of unfortunately torment them even more than they'd already been tormented by the ETs.
I know,
through drugs and inserted memories and MK Ultra and all those types of things. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like us working on mice, and then the mice being abducted by the other mice of why are you abducted?
Yeah, maybe the more evolved that mice is trying to, gain an upper hand. So that all that stuff was pretty prevalent. It's happening less now, from my understanding and my communications with the ETs, and I maybe that's the segue for that. But yeah, it's there's a lot of opinions, and these things are hard to nail down to get the evidence, because it is quickly swept, grabbed, I should say, by certain military groups and agencies that even within the military, the famous Nimitz encounter that happened off the coast of California, even the military pilots, David Fravor and others who were part of those experiences, had people fly in their aircraft carrier and quickly take all the recordings and tapes and everything, and people were like, what's going on here? So when I say government, there's many aspects. So it's the government in general. People that work for the government and do things, they don't know what's going on. These are very specialized groups within military, so it's not like the whole military is keeping this thing a secret from the public. These are very specialized groups and covert operations that are that we shouldn't sort of bunch into that idea that they're all working together.
It seems clear. Like I've heard stories that, Carter asked and George Bush Sr. said, not in your pay grade. And Clinton asked,
right.
And they said, not in your pay grade, and Obama's quoted as saying, they told me not to talk about it. Like, so it's like pretty much even the president who's elected is out of that loop. And it seems like it's very, it's very close. So it sounds like that was a phase the aliens were going through abducting us. They got their data basically, and they're on to new frontiers. I know it's a big universe out there, but can you just sort of, in a quick sweep, give us a sweep of the variety of species? Because you're in a very unique seat. You're like, again, the Oprah Winfrey of ED, I think. Like, you get full credit. So you've heard so many stories and seen so many channels and mediums. So you're really in this interesting seat of being in the center of all this knowledge. What is the scope? How many races do you think there are visiting us at any time?
Oh man, I would say there's probably too many to count.
Okay.
But the sort of the more popular ones, the ones that I interview and talk with, Pleiades, especially, we hear that thrown around all the time.
Yeah.
Octurians, Lyrans, the Zetas, Zeta Reticuli, the gray beings, Syrians, and reptilians. Obviously, we've heard about the reptilians, and there's malevolent and benevolent ones, and there's malevolent and benevolent sort of in all the groups, really. But for the most part, I would say 90% of the ones visiting us are benevolent. We do most of the universe, at least in my research, and these different beings are benevolently oriented. So
They must be, or we'd be slaves by now.
Exactly. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's the I try to use that sort of logic with everybody. It's like, why, if they're out to get us into really enslave us, why would they wait till our technology advances until
And we
we're
can fight them
actually
back.
yeah, we could fight them back, or we actually know what's going on? Why not just wipe us off the planet or enslave us a long time ago? And in certain aspects they have. I think what we're dealing with, a lot of these energies on the global issues that we're dealing with, aspects of it are an extra dimensional energy or archetypes that are sort of bleeding through the collective human consciousness. But so there's a physical component to what's happening, but there's also a very energetic component, and that's probably the more prominent one. How it shows up in a physical form really varies between species, between belief systems, between the individual having the experiences, the collectives that are having the experiences, and there's all sorts of variables that go into that. And I cover a lot of those topics in my show, but as far as different species, if we're just specifically talking about extraterrestrials, there's hundreds, if not thousands, that are contacting people on an individual basis. I think on a collective basis, we're not quite there yet. We had the big Phoenix Lights event in 1997 that was seen by thousands of people and reported by many, including the governor, Fife Simonson, at the time. He had seen it and changed his whole worldview paradigm. So we're kind of waiting for that next big Phoenix Lights event. In fact, it was predicted that this month, or I should say last month now, November, that many of the ETs that I communicate with on my show and stuff had mentioned that there was going to be a world-changing sort of event. And the way it was interpreted, that most of us in the community sort of understood this, there's going to be another Phoenix Lights. And this time with cell phone technology, where everybody's going to film it and it's going to go out to the masses. I don't think that happens per se. There's a lot of, since the official congressional hearings last summer, we've had a big uptick of UFO videos coming out on the interwebs, but those are so hard with all the amazing technology we have now. It's so hard to tell if it's real or fake. And at this point, I would say I would just put them all in the fake category. It doesn't matter at this point. I think what the biggest, this big disclosure event that we experienced was David Grush being on Joe Rogan last week. And I think a lot of people, Joe Rogan being, having an average viewership per podcast of 11 million views worldwide, blows out any of the mainstream media viewerships, all combined even. And I think that was a big talk at the Thanksgiving dinner table, was that, hey, ETs they're here, and did you know the government has them, and all that stuff. So I think this worldview paradigm shift is actually happening this week, like last week and this week. We're in it.
That's so fascinating, because that's exactly what the astrology is saying, is that we're entering into a whole new era, a whole new narrative. And from an astrological perspective, my view is Pluto in Aquarius marks a time where higher frequencies are available to humankind. And I've always thought to myself, disclosure or intergalactic awareness, which would be a major paradigm shift, to everything in life, would likely happen after Pluto enters Aquarius for good, which is next January 20th, basically, and for 24 years. You had a little visitor there.
Sorry, yeah, my little alien cat came in.
Yeah, little alien.
Yes, absolutely. I think you can feel the energy, and I'm in this field, so I'm got my I'm on the pulse all the time. Got my fingers on the pulse, sort of checking the temperature all the time. And I feel this is we're just in the beginnings of this. I think first, I use this analogy a lot. You may have heard, I think it was in What the Bleep Do We Know? They talked about sort of the urban legend that the indigenous in America didn't have a concept of foreign boats coming from another land, another country. So the boats were sort of parked out on the coast for about 3 or 4 days before the indigenous could actually see them. It took the shamans to sort of go into a trance and do their shamanic practices to say, no, there's other beings out there. There's ships. And it was not until their consciousness was seeded from the shamans that then they could actually visualize them, because they didn't have a concept for what that was. So I use that analogy for what's happening right now with collective humanity, is the seeding of the consciousness in the way that it's happening through the Rogans and stuff. We have movies that talk about the subject in a negative space, and we've seen the wars, the Star Wars and the Star Treks and all those types of things. But so to a certain extent, the consciousness has been seeded, but to the idea that it's actually real, that this is not just science fiction, guys. We're actually dealing with something tangible. And to have Grush and other whistleblowers come forward and talk about this in a bigger stage like Congress or the Joe Rogan podcast, then for sure that now they're primed. The world is primed and ready for these things to really start showing up.
It seems like, and open too. Like I don't mean a common person that's like, yeah, it could be aliens. Like it's, this idea that society's going to flip out and scream running for the hills is like, no. I think we've seen about it all. Movies have, made us go there already in so many ways. We're more than prepared. Do you believe that's a deliberate seeding through Hollywood media? There's rumors there. Okay.
Yeah, Project Mockingbird, CIA, their intentions to create fear around the phenomenon, I think, is quite true. And I've been a producer and working in Hollywood, I was trying to get programs greenlit and I was trying to get the mainstream media to take the citizen hearing seriously, and I couldn't get anybody, and they all wanted to turn it into some sort of fear-based sort of thing. And if it had a fear-based spin, of course everybody was ready to put it out on prime time right away. But because it didn't have that, or a show didn't have that sort of idea, then it was the people at the bottom, the producers and stuff, everybody thought these were great ideas. This isn't another TV show about free energy, and another show concept. My show, Interview with Ed, it took many years until Gaia actually picked it up. But the mainstream folks that I was pitching it to, they didn't want anything to do with it, because it was putting ETs in a positive light. Are you crazy? So
they're anti-ascension. I mean, I was in Hollywood for 25 years pitching spiritual shows, and they all took the free readings at the pitch meetings, but then didn't greenlight the show. So it's like they personally wanted my reading, but they weren't going to put me on the air. God, no. Right. Do you believe, so from what I gather from all my research of just fascination, not anything in the real terms of research, but spiritually, this is part of the narrative in the spiritual community that, first of all, Earth is sort of a galactic library of DNA, allegedly, of all the species of the Milky Way, or of whatever we would call the parameters of our galaxy. And in some regards, it's sort of like a multidimensional reality show where ultimately all these species are allegedly, like from what I understand, the Palladians and the Syrians actually helping us develop at key points in our development, is what I heard. I mean, I've heard through other channels that in Atlantis, aliens were commonly walking among the people during special times of the year of astrological significance. The elongated head of Egypt, allegedly Syrian. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like they've been involved. And there's a invested interest in what will happen with all these DNAs and all these alien influences having babies with one another. Is that the narrative you also see?
Yeah, pretty much. I was you're spot on for sure. That's sort of the general consensus that's coming through the channel material, is that we planet Earth is a very special soup, sort of archetypal alien soup, and of course there's indigenous aspects to the planet and her being, but yes, much of life here was seeded from all over the galaxy, and in order to a lot of them sort of compare it to not so much a game. I don't want to say a game, an experiment. I think that's the best way. Sort of like a terrarium in a sense. Just let's see what can work, and if it and then through that natural hybridization of these different species and groups and animals, and sort of let evolution sort of naturally figure itself out, then that would be a successful experiment, so to say. So, and from what I understand from their perspective, we are heading in that direction. This Earth experiment at times had failed. So Atlantis, Lemuria, these are different marker points where it sort of did fail, and the reset button was hit to recalibrate things, reset, readjust, let evolution do its thing again. And then, these different cycles, and we're in it here this time. And as far as I know, I mean, I've talked to so many different beings and consciousnesses, and they all seem to be celebrating and saying that you guys got this. There's going, this is not going to be another reset like before. I think the potential is still there, but it's very low.
Fantastic. I mean, and do you believe, so there's a lot of story, particularly from my mother, I was kidding. I know she's not watching, that there's still reptiles here that have infiltrated DNA lines of particular wealthy families. Do you believe there is that sort of puppeteering going on in your research of what you're hearing?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the reptile thing is just an easy sort of label to put on it. I think it's more than just, say, reptiles. I think there's different consciousnesses. As I was saying earlier, there's good and bad in everything, right? Even these highly evolved consciousnesses. Syria has a ton of dark pasts. When I talk to different Syrian beings and channelers, there's whole millennia of darker aspects to that consciousness. But now they've evolved, they work through things. And same with many reptilian consciousnesses too. Many of them have these dark, not so happy-go-lucky past that we would look at as like, oh my God. And it was many of those darker aspects that came to this planet a long time ago and have yet fully evolved, where maybe on their planet they've worked it out, but we have those aspects that came here, we're still working it out. So I hate to give specific labels of reptilian or this or that or another, but basically, yes, these darker aspects from other parts of our galaxy have been here for a long time, and now we're working through that, trying to sort of purge or transmute those energies so we can all get along better.
Is it a consensus among the people the aliens, the dimensionals that you are interviewing, that the Earth is naturally moving to a higher frequency, like it or not? Or is the perception that humans' own awakening is pushing that ceiling?
Oh man, this is where like Wendy Kennedy and the Peas, they talk about the frequency wars. And so this extreme polarity that our sort of setting is that humanity has a dark and a light aspect. Most of the galaxy has this, but it seems to be quite extreme or quite wide in its variance. So we have unlike other, this is the way it's told to me, is unlike other parts of other galaxies or other solar systems and planets, don't have quite the spectrum that we have. So it's a little more narrow spectrum. So their evolution is maybe even longer than ours. So our Earth can evolve quickly, but it can also de-evolve quickly. And we have these extremes. And so my understanding is right now, because of the we've been in this fall period where we've had these control mechanisms and sort of lower vibrational aspects. Third density, as it's some of them call it. Many people think about third dimension, or we're going to the fifth dimension. I like to use the density scale, which is more a level, sort of measuring consciousness levels. And there's a consensus that says, we're moving from third density to fourth density. So we're moving sort of like in chakras from our solar plex chakra to our heart chakra. And even in our vernacular, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we used to say, I've got a gut feeling that says, go do this or go do that. Follow your gut, kid, and now it's like, follow your heart. So we've already using these terms of getting us into this idea of this heart space. And that's truly fourth density. So we have a lot of old third density programming, fight or flight, survival, hierarchy, these types of ideas and concepts that are still being run by some of these lower dimensional beings, and they enjoy that sort of, that they can have their hierarchy in those lower states of consciousness, where in the fourth density, those time becomes a little more malleable. Hierarchy is not quite the thing. Individual sovereignty and all these things are more emphasized or respected, more the individual and the collective. So like the earth and its ecosystems, where the third density is about dominance and controlling. So we're purging those old ways, but a lot of those old people and energies that are still attached to those old ways of doing things are very much trying their darndest to not change. and we know the only constant is change, so we will get there, but there is resistance, and when that resistance comes through, my understanding is it sort of opens a two-way pump. So the light, so to say, can also pierce through these portals when the dark takes action. In a way, the light can come through even stronger, which then gives us a boost in our evolution. And we've seen this over the centuries of evolution of humanity. When after World War II, we had the 1950s. We had and even more in the past. So it's constantly a sort of this stepping stone of dark, and then the light comes in, then dark. And I don't know if that's ever going to stop, but we're definitely in a big transition now, according to the interviews I've been doing.
And so that's the frequency wars, that you have certain conscious beings that are like feeding off of the pain and defining power as being above someone else versus connected to source. It's a different way of a power source. Basically, it's like,
yes,
to get their power is a little bit more barbaric and basic. And we're literally talking about a shift of where we grant our power.
Yeah, I recently did. I have a sort of section. I have a membership portal, and then I've been doing these interviews with maybe you've heard of the raw consciousness. Carla,
raw diet.
No, not quite the raw diet, but Carla Reckert back in the early '80s did a series of channelings from the Raw Collective, and it's
Ra. Excuse me,
like the sun god Ra from Egypt. That's a lot of people.
I've heard a bit about the Ra. Yeah, the power of one or something is
the law. Law of one. Yeah.
I think the law of one. Yeah,
exactly. Sorry. So I befriended a channeler that seemed to be tapped into that consciousness stream, and we've been doing interviews over the past few months, and Rob really mentioned something, and it was sort of we were kind of catching ball, trying to different vernacular and stuff. But one example to show is that, so we are all sort of connected to source. As individuals, we have our own individual light that we come to this planet to shine, to do our experience, to have our thing. But we often, like a mirror, like a hall of mirrors, when you look into the mirror, for the mirror to do something, for the reflection to act, you have to act first. Bashar is a famous channeler. He's also been in my show. He has this famous saying that if you want the image in the mirror to smile, you have to do the smiling first. The image is not going to smile at you. So using that analogy, through the conversation with Raw, we sort of said, if you sort of take the two mirrors behind you, and you've got this endless, kind of Wayne's World type of endless mirrors, and a mirror within a mirror within a mirror. So what's happened is there's a consciousness, an egoic consciousness that has become, it's one of the reflections in these mirrors that has taken its own personality on, and it's not sort of the pure individual consciousness that we are born into this world with. And that consciousness is so has to feed on us looking in the mirror, look and feeding it. So, and it's sort of taken it on its own personality in a sense. And that is what is this sort of darker energy that is very manipulative and very much trying to control and feed off the human collective, and take our energy for its own benefit. And many of us are caught up, in the material world, in the outside world. We're not looking inside to do that work. So we get caught up in that, and we believe that that image is the real image, as opposed to just looking inside us and us doing our own personal work, and us smiling in the mirror, as opposed to looking at that image way down, like 50 mirrors down. Oh, there's that image. Oh, look, it's smiling. Okay, then maybe that's the truth. No, the truth has to come from inside. So hopefully that gives a little context of what we're dealing with here. It's an illusion. It's not really, I guess it's really there because we're feeding it, we're giving it the power. But as soon as we take our power back in our own sovereign individual beings in ourselves, and many of your teachings and others that are sort of in the spiritual community saying, hey, one of the big messages here is to take back our power. And once we do that, then that image just goes away. We're not feeding it anymore. So it starves and it goes away. We don't have to fight it. It's not something we need to fight. The more we fight it, the actual more power we give it.
Well said, brother. I mean, I think that's the core of my message for this whole year, is that there is definitely a dark, organized entity that wants the fight because they feed off of it. And we're being encouraged to fight on social media. We're being encouraged to fight over religion. And it's just like, as soon as we just stop the fight, I think we take away the power of that existence. That's pretty fascinating. I saw one episode on your YouTube channel where you interview Archangel Metatron by channel by
Rob Gauthier. Yeah.
Rob Gauthier. That was, first of all, I've always felt like I've been connected to Metatron. It sounds like you are too. So having an interview with interviewing an archangel, what's that like?
Oh man. Yeah, well,
I mean, I saw it, but yeah.
Metatron, especially, that energy is, as you probably are familiar with, it's a very intense energy.
It is.
And it was funny because during the interview, it was a nice sunny day all day. And then we sort of finished one interview and we set up for the next one. As soon as we set up for it, the wind starts blowing, clouds are coming in, and we're like, what is going on here?
Metatron's making an entrance.
Yeah. And I talked to Rob, who channels Metatron frequently, and he says, yeah, every time he brings in that energy, something, a pipes break in the apartment complex, something's going on. So it is a very big energy to channel. And I had sort of my very first sort of psychedelic experience, which was not using psychedelics. It was this thing I called the Phoenix Bath, or my teacher of mine, Marcus Lovemore, who performed it. It's a hot pepper bath. It's using African bird fruit. So you actually like soak in this kind of cayenne pepperish bath. And to date, it's been the most excruciating pain I've ever been in my life. 30 minutes in this pain. Yeah. And talk about a dark night of soul reawakening. That's why it's called the Phoenix Bath. And it was in that moment that I in a sense, I started channeling Metatron, and I had never, this was way before I even had the show going. Didn't even know really who Metatron was. But I was given visions and different things. So I did have this, ever since that moment, I've always felt like I've had this connection with Metatron, and wanting to know more. And it wasn't until years later, until after I did that interview with Rob, actually, that this image of, I don't know if you're familiar with squaring the circle. I
learned about it from your show, that one episode. So there's a square in the circle. Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. So if you take a sort of square and you put a circle around it, to get the exact same circumference of the circle as a square, it doesn't fit in exactly. So if you put the circle inside the square, it's going to have less of a radius around it. So to get the exact radius, the circle sort of comes out of the square ever so slightly. And there's a magical math formula there when you do that, and a lot of researchers have found, squaring the circle and the math behind it. There's certain points that then you do, and then that leads to sort of the Metatron's cube in a way. It's just fascinating because I had that image given to me in the bath. It took me years to figure out what I even saw. I didn't even know what it was. And then later I was like, oh, squaring the circle. Thank you, Metatron.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And from that interview, it was interesting. He spoke to himself as we. He said there were different fractions of his personality, which is that your comprehension of, have you interviewed other archangels too, or been able to had channels on with other archangels?
Yeah, I think it's not just with the archangels, but with the just in most of these energies, these collectives, they, even the singular energies like a Bashar, they all use the term we, because I think once a civilization becomes telepathic, which we're headed that direction according to my interviews, then, for example, you learn something, I learn something, then our entire human collective learns that instantaneously because we're intertwined telepathically, and we don't have to. We're kind of, this is our rudimentary form of telepathic communication. But once we're there through our minds and our hearts, then that way, if I'm talking to someone else, I'm sort of now a wayshore or a bridger of whatever I'm going to be interacting for my whole collective society. So that therefore I would, instead of using the word I'm like, I say, hey, we, because I'm coming with my entourage, even though it may just be me physically, but I'm coming collectively with my whole entire civilization. We're going to learn this information and we're going to share it, and however. So that's sort of why I think most of the angels and these bigger energies, they use the term we, because we are not, even if it appears we're talking to one aspect of the collective as a whole is getting that information.
Yeah, I mean, I've used the word we to describe myself a lot and been like, oh, did anyone hear that? Like, because,
who's on the other side there?
But if I'm caught alone,
somebody's listening.
I think your girlfriend pointed out, she's like, why are you referring to yourself as we? I'm like, no reason, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. But what was fascinating was just that how he's describing his personality, and that side of my personality does this and this part of my personality does that, which kind of affirms something that I've been sort of studying in astrology. So interesting thing about astrology and the planets is, that square in a circle happens all the time with the planets. There are moments where the planets form these vertice points with their gravitational pull, and it's like the earth is put into this energetic spell. So I personally am a sacred geometry, student, where I'm watching the planets play this geometry and then seeing that play out in consciousness being stirred, which I find to be pretty fascinating. But also, it seems like, as I've studied astrology, that we're all signs, and that, our heart has a mind of its own, our mind has a mind of its own, our ego has a mind of its own. These parts of ourself will do things on their own, without being requested. So it feels like we are conscious of we's. And I've always wondered, like, do one day do we divide because we're building up these little mini consciousnesses of us and ourselves? So it's a fascinating direction. So can you give us, again, this is your whole life's work or whatever, but the sketch of dimensions. You mentioned the third dimension, density. It becomes less dense as you go higher. The waveforms become faster as you go higher. That's the overall metaphysics of it, correct? And I noticed you had Wendy Kennedy, who is amazing. Oh my God. Everyone, if you just see the first episode of his series, I should have bought it. I rented it. Now I'm kicking myself for not buying it.
We'll set you up. We'll get you. Make sure you get it. It's actually available on Tubi now for free, if you don't mind the advertising.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know, everyone. And we'll also pitch this at the end. But she was pretty wonderful, and it's real clear from the very beginning that she's the real deal, because she's just channeling this density. But allegedly, she's coming from the 9th dimension. What is your spectrum of knowledge of dimensions in an elementary way?
Yeah, this is where there's sort of two measurement forms that I like to use. There's density, and then there's dimensions. And a lot of times I think in the spiritual community, those get intertwined and they get a little confused. Okay. So everybody's talking about, we're moving into the 5th dimension. So in reality, we're actually in the fourth dimension right now. A lot of people use the term in the spiritual world, well, that's so 3D. But if you actually break it down, we have, up, down, left, right, and sort of the Z axis, right? XYZ axis. And that's our three-dimensional spaces. And then the fourth component to that is space-time. Where space and, Einstein talks about how space and time they're sort of glued together at the hip. You can't, it's you measure time by how much, or you measure space by how much time it gets to take to get there and there. Anyways, they're sort of intertwined there. So we're actually in the fourth dimension if you're measuring it using those sort of parameters. And the fifth dimension is where you take the time aspect. And this is where maybe many of us have started to feel this, is like, time seems to be speeding up. There are aspects in our dream sequences where we're in one situation and all of a sudden the scene changes and we're in another situation. It's not so linear. And that is sort of the idea of the fifth dimension, is the time aspect starts getting wonky, where now we're no longer just our physical being having this linear A to B experience. We're now able to hop around in a sense, and then also interact with other aspects of our oversoul, which could be other versions of us. And that's where many of these channelers who are channeling so-called ETs are actually just channeling another dimensional version of themselves. And because they're already connected energetically or on an oversoul level, then they can easily access that version of themselves from another reality. And that's what's coming through. So that's sort of in the ninth dimension, just imagine. So space-time being fluid in the fifth dimension, sixth dimension, there's some great videos on dimensions on YouTube that sort of explain the idea of like if you're, this idea of walking through, are you familiar with the, what's the term? Well, I can use the idea of a piece of paper, and they always say to get to one space, this is sort of the linear space that we're going. But then if you take the paper and then bend it, then you can all of a sudden, you can get to the other side much quicker than having to go the linear room. But then if you take the paper, let me just cut this in half here. Whoops, that was a poor halving. But then if you sort of take the paper and bend it, and then you can create the Mobius strip, which then you're going on both sides of the paper, and then you're kind of going in a loop, but then you're experiencing different things of it. It's like having an ant walk on a piece of paper linearly, or in a hose, and then it's all bent, and then you start seeing different aspects. But then if you're a fly, and from a fly's perspective, you can actually go through the hose and have a different experience because you're no longer walking on a linear line. So there's a lot of different videos that talk about different aspects.
Wow.
And those are dimensions, and it's really is how we perceive reality. I think is where the dimension thing goes. The density thing is, so we have our heart chakra right now, our fourth density consciousness, and that's where collective humanity is moving into. We're sort of in that transition phase, and then we'll go up to fifth density, which is correlated with the throat chakra, and then sixth density, third eye, and then seventh, and then beyond, whatever that is. So beyond the physical body. Even a lot of the ETs say that beyond the fourth density, at the end of fourth, sort of fifth density-ish, is within the fifth density spectrum is when we start becoming non-physical, or late fourth, early fifth is when things we start becoming sort of light energies and more able to traverse the universe without spaceships and these types of things. So there's a lot there. I'm just kind of
that's interesting
aspects of it. Yeah,
keep running. From what I understand, I mean, I don't even know, but what I've understood, the ascended masters are in the fifth, where you're in your light body, and there's allegedly a point when you can we ascend and we convert our body basically to light, from what I've understood so far in my studies. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's correlating with my studies as well. That eventually we will sort of get to this place in our evolution where we go back to light. I think that's where we come from. sort of the breaking down of the prism, right? When you take the Pink Floyd album, when you have the white light and it breaks down to the different spectrums of the rainbow and to the fractals, and this, reality here is a fractalized version of source, the white light, God, and and we're moving back up to that through our experiences, and so I think we'll eventually get there, however, millions of years or millennia or whatever that takes, who knows. But just the shift from from third to fourth density on its own it's going to, and I'm sure as the astrology reads, everything's going to change, like how we do everything. It's just a whole different way operating system.
Yeah, I think it's drawing power from our source, our creative source, I guess, and not drawing power from opposition.
Yeah.
So it's basically going from that locomotive gasoline engine to anti-gravity. Like it literally is that same sort of interesting leap. I found it fascinating again with Wendy Kennedy, that one episode, the first one, who was channeling Palladians. She was fascinating point where she says in reincarnation that you can choose to go back in time in a path, to experience a lesson. It's not linear at all, which blew my mind at that point. Cause I never quite understood, the order of things. We tend to think of, my past life in this, because I do have some past life memories. And they're always, of course, in history. They're not, I don't have any forward life memories yet, but it's a fascinating aspect. So when you say the oversoul, are you speaking to your higher vibrational source in heaven that is sort of light casting yourself into the earth? Or are you speaking to all the different, avatars of you in different lives?
More the latter. I'd say Lisa Royale Holt, she has a great book called The Golden Lake, and I love her analogy. She describes this sort of cosmic lake, which would be our oversoul. So we all sort of, when we die or we leave this existence, we go back to this pool of souls, so to say, like a lake. And because all of the collective souls are there, it's really hard to differentiate each one. They still are individual, they still have it, but as we were talking about, a telepathic society has all the information of all of the souls' energy. So that lake has all of that collective energy of all the souls that have incarnated and wherever they've incarnated. And then what happens is that lake then branches off and creates, rivers and streams and ponds. And those are the individual experiences that each soul or a small group of souls, say, decide to come and incarnate on Earth. And these oversouls can be very cosmic, so they're not limited to Earth. They have streams going to Sirius, streams going to the Pleiades, streams going to these other systems. And then what happens is, as we evolve, as we sort of go upstream and we get closer to the lake, then we can start experiencing these other versions of reality, and that's not confounded by time. So the physics of things starts getting really wonky, because Earth is having its rotation around the sun, doing its thing with the planets and all that stuff, and that is obviously has time constraints, but on a soul level, that you're not confounded by these celestial clocks, in a sense. So then you have a little more playroom to play with the time and the experiences. So then you could literally choose go into the future, go into the past, and or however that works. It's more the way the other ETs talk about it is everything is. I like to reference the Nikola Tesla quote that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of vibration, frequency, and energy. I may have mixed those up a little bit, but once I started having these conversations with ETs, I'd always go back to that quote to really understand how the universe works in more in that sense, frequency and vibration. So the way it's been explained to me is a lot of our past life bleed throughs that we are experiencing. The reason they're coming to us at that specific time is because there's a certain resonance that whatever we're going through in our life at that time, there's a resonance to the experience. So these memories then bleed through to help us sort of remember or say, oh, well, in that life I did it this way. Well, let's, switch it up and do it something different, or however that's going to work. And that can happen. It's just a lot of it's our belief systems that are blocking it, but that can happen with future lives in the same sense. So we can actually access other lives in other star systems, and that may be considered in a linear sense our future lives, but we can access that and then bring that in to help us deal with whatever situation as well.
Super fascinating. Yeah. I actually felt this strong attraction to a woman once, and I asked a psychic, like, have I had a past life with her? And she's like, no, she's your future wife in another life. I'm like, oh shit. See you soon, honey. But it was like, it was really kind of blew my mind because, but isn't that the point though? We had Dr. Eben Alexander III on here talking about his near-death experience, and he went to that pond, and he speaks to the fact that there's a consultation when you return. There's a sort of plan made, like we plan to re-resonate with certain mistakes, situational situations that we had in past lives. And so there's a plan to come into that frequency again, deliberately, to have a chance to respond differently in that type and in that moment. And that's how we learn basically and grow spiritually. Do you also believe that?
Yeah. And I think that's why we're in this time of transition, because we've sort of probably we've all as individuals have, in the lakes, have the Golden Lakes have gotten so full. Basically, they've done everything, every possible scenario you could possibly think of. And I know everything's infinite, but really in this third density game experiment that's been set up, we've sort of played it out on every role possible. So now now it's like, okay, we can't do anything else other than change the game. Let's change the physics. Let's change the operating system, and very. That's why Earth right now is such a cosmic hotspot, and so many ET races are interested, because it's not often that within a few generations, really, that a planetary system goes through such dramatic changes from one density to the next. So many are interested in how humans are going to handle this. Many are helping humanity, because it's for the betterment of the universe if we can sort of navigate these times. But for sure, there is a past playing out of scenarios to learn and experiment and do things. And I just think collective humanity has probably done everything that we could possibly think of in every scenario with the old ways of doing things. So now it's time to move on.
It certainly feels played out, Reuben. And also we can go down so many rabbit holes, but I've always felt I was from a different star system. Do you have that same resonance yourself? Have interviewing these EDs, have you said, did one of them feel like home? You don't have to share if you don't want to, but.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I get this all the time. This is what's so much fun about this is I meet random people, strangers, and I've consistently over time, I've gotten that the sort of two key star systems that resonate with me, or that people see me from, is Pleiades and Nocturians. And that, yeah, I'll take that. I'm not, I enjoy both of those energies. I also have a fascination with mantis beings, because I have had an experience, a personal experience, a contact experience, I should say, my only contact experience to the date, outside my show, with another sort of ET race, and that was with the mantises. So I'm fascinated with those guys. So I don't, and I've heard through other, starseed readers and things, they say, oh yeah, you've had mantis lives before. I forget what part of the Antares system maybe they come from. I think that's where they're at.
Interesting. I've always found myself attracted to Palladian women.
Yes. The especially the AI ones now are really hot.
Yeah. So, but I think I'm from Sirius, seriously, with Sirius Joy, which came to me on its own story. Like I was obsessed. I don't know why I was obsessed with Sirius. And then I had a couple readings and they were like, well, because you're from there. And but I actually have some of the memories of coming to Earth, or at least memories of deciding to come to Earth and wanting to help at some point. So these are things that, for those who are watching, it's like you have these hunches, and eventually and you can maybe affirm this, Reuben. Eventually they get affirmed through readings. They get affirmed through dreams. They seem crazy at first, but if you just pay attention to these little symbols, they start to create a thread of a narrative as far as the intergalacticness of, and it seems like that's where we're going next. Even in astrology, astrologers are starting to talk about beyond the Kuiper belt and taking objects beyond the Kuiper belt into the chart. So it's all, and these are higher chakras. So it seems like this is all part of what we are doing now. So let's talk about your show. You have a show called Interview with Ed. Is that how you call it? Not ED. You just call it Ed.
Yeah, I call it Ed. The ED, there's other meanings to that I get laughed at sometimes. So,
okay. Oh, got you. That's funny.
So
that'd be very popular with men, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I get a lot of, what kind of show is that about? So
OnlyFans channel.
Yeah. So I kind of originally, so it was actually my interview with Wendy Kennedy and the Palladians. So my original intention was Interview with E.T, extraterrestrials, and that was sort of the direction I was going. And I think I forget, it was a conversation either before or after the channeling, somewhere in there. I think Wendy had said, well, what's the show called? What are you doing? She was my first interview. And I said, well, I'm thinking about calling it this. And she's like, oh, well, they're kind of saying you should probably go with extra dimensionals, because that would be a more accurate description of what they are. This idea of extraterrestrials is very limiting to, we have this idea of, tight skin spacesuits and, the Palladian blonde women and
ET phone home. And yeah,
ET phone home and that kind of thing. So, which is, there's still accuracy to that, but where this is all going, and at least in my journey, this has definitely gone into, fairies and fae and mermaids and different, angels, archangels. There's a whole gamut of consciousnesses and energies on the planet, off planet, in the planet, inner earth beings and these types of things. So that was an accurate, I'm glad I went with that title, which was a little obscure at the time, but even David Grush, who was talking at the congressional hearings, was talking about interdimensional, extra-dimensional beings and, sort of helping Joe Rogan figure out the vernacular. And I'm like, yes, I did. 10 years ago, I was already ahead of the curve. So,
you are, brother.
So it was good.
Yeah. And this is a show that's available on Gaia currently. What season are you going into? You're still producing this?
Still have a couple more episodes to edit for season 3. Season 3 is in its entirety is only available right now on Vimeo. Gaia had picked up 12 episodes and hoping they'll pick up the rest. But I've got, after I finish these next 2 episodes, there'll be, 28 episodes in season 3. So, wow. But now I've sort of I'm going to put a little pause on the show once I get these 2 episodes out. And now I'm really focusing on my membership portal, which is similar to yours. We have a special guest every week now, and we're sort of doing online Zoom calls, and it's been a lot of fun. We have a great community and sort of get to nerd out on ET stuff or ED stuff every.
That's amazing. That's a great idea. What's the name of your community and what's the website? Just go ahead and say it.
Yeah, it's interviewwithed.org. It's all one word. There we go. And
okay. Totally would, just like seeing the ship offshore. I didn't see it until you brought to my consciousness. Sorry.
And within that, do we have a special membership portal? It's $33 a month, or you can get a discount if you sign up for a year. And there's lots of fun things we do. We do weekly interviews. In addition, I teach breath work, and we have some other classes from some other disciplines. We talk about dreams, dream counsel, and channeling classes and these types of things. So that's brilliant. A lot going on.
I'm going to join, dude. I'm going to join. I think that's the future. I'll send you. Netflix and Marvel goes only so far, but these new niche communities where you're drawing in experts and you have access to these experts, you can ask questions. It's priceless. I think I saw you have a YouTube channel also out, so people can get a real feel for a lot of your work. And I personally did rent your whole season 3, or no, season 1, excuse me, on Vimeo. Forgive me. I'm addicted now. I'm going to watch everything because I'll tell you, you all, these EDs have a lot of spiritual wisdom about how God and creation works. It is far more spiritual than it is alien, in my opinion.
Sure.
Because it's all about creation and the different varieties of creation and how creation works and how manifestation works. Wendy Kennedy in particular is amazingly sharp and brilliant. I saw you brought her back recently too. That's really cool. Also, it's just cool to see her evolution as well. Where do you, as a final question here, and I hope everyone looks Reuben up, his work is outstanding. What do you think is next, with the EDs, like even the aliens and whatnot? Is it that we're bringing ourselves to a new golden age? Is there a benchmark goal that there's a collective goal for? What's the next step? Seems like the first step was disclosure. Now
Right.
what?
Well, I think first contact is right around the corner.
Okay.
And we sort of the disclosure process, and we're doing that now. Grush doing that. Our conversation here, this is helping seed the collective to get more comfortable of the idea that we're not alone, that there are other beings from other worlds that have been coming and going here for a long time, way more than 80 years. 80 years is just what the government's involvement has been. But you have tribes like the Dogon tribe and many ancient, even North American and the Hopis and many South American and Central American tribes, Asia as well. Like if you look at all of the old indigenous cultures of the world, they all talk about the star people, and as you mentioned, Atlantis as well. So it's sort of reconnecting to our star families that have always been around, but because we've been in this sort of dark, controlled siphoning of our energy for so long, that we weren't able to have those higher vibratory experiences, because many of these beings are at a higher vibration. Doesn't mean they're higher in a hierarchical sense, just higher vibratory. So it doesn't match. Just like when you try to take a tuning fork and you have one, and then all of a sudden the others start to click on, and if they're not in harmonic sense, it doesn't work.
They kind of crash. Yeah.
They
It's
crash.
like laughter versus crying.
Right.
Laughter is a higher vibration. Crying is a lower vibration. You can't really laugh while you're crying. You can't really cry while you're laughing. They don't really go together energetically. And it seems like we're going towards more laughter. When I've had a couple of moments of peeking into heaven through some guided meditations with an angel reader, I got to the angel realm and I saw it for real. And the vision took over my third eye, which I was shocked. I was like, wow, I'm not driving this. I am suddenly a passenger, but all the angels are all cracking jokes. And it was like, they're all laughing and stuff. And I was like, what is this? This isn't a Council of Light. This is like, the rat pack, like, so it's pretty, but it seems it's all lighter. There's a lot more comedy. Metatron for me can be either really serious or really funny. Like it's kind of both. The energy is really, really dense and intense. So yeah, I actually even think too, I mean, and we could talk all night, but I don't believe the pyramids were made by humans. There's just no way.
Or ancient humans that had access to that
alien technology.
Yeah. So I think where we're headed. So as the collective consciousness sort of breaks the shackles, so to say, of these heavier frequencies, and as we lighten up as a collective, then we can create the space for the ETs to come in. Because right now, the ones that do come and visit us, it's very limited. You've probably seen the videos that, if a craft flies over, then the jets are scrambled and they come right after it and, are in hot pursuit. So it's really not safe for them en masse to come here without disguises and without, just coming sort of telepathically or however that is. But once the vibratory rate of the frequency of the planet gets to a certain state where it's safe for them to come, then we'll have first contact. And then from there, it's just like, think about the trading of the old days of, when the Europeans came over, started trading with the indigenous, and then we had the trades through China, and this whole sort of Renaissance era of wisdom and ideas and sharing on a galactic level, not just limited to what we've been experiencing here on planet Earth. And on an open platform that can happen, just imagine the evolution and re-evolution of humanity and where that can go. I mean, you use your imagination can probably take you really far, but I do believe that is coming, and probably within our lifetimes. Probably the estimates I'm hearing is we could see this in the next the beginnings of this. You know, we already are seeing the beginnings, but we could have first contact within 10 years.
Wow, that'd be amazing. And I have heard, like from Dr. Greer, others, that naughty United States is shooting these crafts down. That we have an energetic weapon and we're shooting them down. So they're literally target practice for our evolved government.
So-called evolved. But I think a lot of that's going to there, again, with my conversations with Ron and others, whenever those sort of darker agendas happen, again, it creates, because there's this sort of free will Star Trek, what do you call it? The prime directive type of scenario on planet Earth. I think that's where Star Trek actually got it from, is non-interference. So the humans are sort of left to their own evolution. And this goes both ways. So even when there's a negative force that sort of comes in and does things without our permission or breaking free will, which we've seen a lot of that lately with our, with our different agendas that have been unfolding, then what that does is if one side, good or bad, does something that breaks the free will, then it is sort of a permission slip, or allows for that balance to get harmonized for the other side to come in. And we're seeing a lot of shenanigans from the darker forces, these frequency wars, which are then escalating the intervention. And it's probably harder for us to see in how these interventions are actually taking place. But there is a lot of it happening. And from my conversations, we've been fast tracked. A lot of the predictions were because they never thought that the dark forces were going to pull so many fast ones. So what that's doing is it's allowing humanity to get upgraded quite quickly. And that's part of the turbulence and the chaos that we're seeing on Earth right now is it's just the polarity is quite extreme. But just know, I don't think there's any need to be in any fear, because just know that any sort of card that's played in the detriment of humanity, there's going to be equally and greater card played for the benefit of humanity.
That's a brilliant way to wrap up this amazing interview, brother. Thank you so much for your time and your work. I think your work is extremely important. I'm really proud of you. I can't wait to see where you go next. And I'd like to talk about it. In fact, if you don't mind staying backstage for a minute,
sure,
grab a glass of water and we can catch up just for a couple minutes. Thank you for your time. One more time, your website for everyone.
interviewwithed.org. All one word.
Okay. And we'll put that in the chat as well. All right, sir. Thank you. I hope to have you again sometime in the future to get an update. Everyone, I've been watching the comments, loved you, and they're going to go see your show, as they should, y'all. This is intense, good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
We'll see you soon. Amazing. That was awesome. And I have to get to my script here, so we're just going to improvise on live television. Wasn't he amazing, folks? Oh, my goodness. And, I had interviewed him a while back, as I mentioned, and I never even knew how impressive his galactic resume was. And I'll tell you, I started watching, because I always research for my guests, and I started watching his content. I'm addicted. I can't stop. Talk about binge watching. Put Netflix down. Stop watching Lucifer. Watch some of these intergalactic enlightenment shows. And by the way, you can rent an episode for like $1.99, or you can buy it for like $2.99. So it's super affordable. It obviously supports his work. And it's also, I learned so much about afterlife, Metatron, all these things that we in our community are just chomping at the bits to understand. The extra dimensionals really want to share it with us. And this man, Reuben, is getting these exclusive interviews. I swear he is the Oprah Winfrey of the extra dimensions, truly. And we are grateful for you. We are so grateful for you. And Serious Joy is the sponsor of this show, seriousjoy.com. We're a spiritual community that's helping you raise your vibration, face your lower frequencies, and go up to the fourth and fifth dimension. That is exactly what we're here to do. We've been focusing on getting out of the 3D and moving into the 4D, which is a heart-centered space. And all of our teachings at Serious Joy are all heart-based teachings. Our morale is it's either loving or it's not. It's that simple. There's no right or wrong. There's only love or not love. So give Serious Joy a try. It's just $3.99 for the first month. We have a lot of great content on the site. We're wrapping up the 40 days of truth and purpose. In 40 days, you can learn your entire chart, 30 data points on your chart, plus the entire 12 houses. We have moon ceremony videos with Joe Zaman on the site. We have an amazing practitioner team. We have a sound healer, Kristen Ryder. We have an angel divine intuitive channel named Devin Dewar. In fact, coming up, first of all, last week, we just did our astrologer roundtable, our lights of the roundtable. We had all of our lights on the same table, and we launched the dawn of the new era. That's the theme. And we also have individual megascopes for all 12 signs going live today on the site. And I put a lot of energy into these. I'm a totally different sensei because I'm talking you straight to your astrological race. And our team, our roundtable team, goes week by week to walk you through the month ahead. This is the most, how do I put this? I can't say it with more seriousness at Serious Joy. This is the most important month probably of your life as far as wrapping up and understanding who you are. So for $3.99, you can find out all about yourself. Now, this upcoming week, we have what I was about to say, Devin Dewar, our angel intuitive. We're doing our live Wednesday show, which is Angel Intervention with Devin Dewar and Heather Exposito. These two gals do a tag team. Heather does the deep interview. Devin does the interview with the angels, and her angelic messages are spot on. I can personally vouch for that. And it's incredible to see this mediumship happen on TV. We take 3 subscribers, bring them on, let them have angel readings, and we broadcast it to the whole site. So give it a try, seriousjoy.com. Give it to yourself as a little early Christmas gift. As always, we like to say sharing is caring. If you wouldn't mind sharing a horoscope with someone that needs a horoscope out of our individual horoscopes, or sharing Namaste Today, or sharing Astro Mingle with Reuben, we really appreciate it. That's the best way to give back. Some people like to donate. We accept donations at paypal.com/Sensei Christopher. We do have a Facebook group at seriousjoy.club. We allow you to do lives there. You can speak to our customers. You can try to pitch your own spiritual businesses. It is a community for light working and also businesses of light. So come on down. We also have a human design study group, and that works to help you learn your human design chart. Total volunteers, great staff there, great ladies running that program. That's at seriousjoy.com. That's the best way to stay in touch with us, because you'll get my daily zodiac weathers. I do a little blast here on YouTube. I do it on all the social media, and we do it in the club also. I also post a lot of jokes. And if you want to know my silly side, come to the club, because that's where I'm a goofball all the time. Also, if you want to follow us on all of our social media, it's seriousjoy.social. And if you'd rather listen instead of watch, we do turn this into an audio podcast. It's available on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. All right, friends, that wraps up another phenomenal week here. I want to say thank you again to Reuben Langdon for being our guest tonight. I want to say thank you to Noelle Way, our producer. Thank you to Sarah Lyman, our director, my partner, Eben Freeman, and also the entire team of Light on Serious Joy. I don't think I mentioned Robbie Hunt. She is a metaphysical minister who is on our site. So she's the one I want to make sure that I also care and appreciate her work as well. We'll see you next week, friends. Until then, I love you. Live, love, be.
It's Serious Joy.